Chapter 1662, Position on the Divine Power Ranking. Chapter 1662, Position on the Divine Power Ranking. The storyteller nodded. That's right. The human emperor's seal is a massive weapon of Tianhuang mainland. When it descends, it can suppress mountains and rivers for thousands of kilometers. Even the heavenly god emperor and the others are extremely wary of it. Since the human emperor's seal is in your hands, I'm guessing that someone will definitely fight for it. You have to be extremely careful. Su Zimo nodded. This, alongside the title of the human emperor and the human emperor's seal, were all a form of training left behind for him by the human emperor. If he wanted to grow further, he had to experience these things. If he followed the rules rigidly and comprehended divine powers one after another in the ancient battlefield, he might not even be able to become an emperor in 10,000 years, let alone 1,000. The storyteller thought for a moment and continued, there are 36 rankings on the divine power ranking and emperors are not among them. In other words, everyone on the divine power ranking are Mahayana patriarchs. If the divine power ranking is just for fame, it's fine even if I don't compete for it. Su Zimo was not bothered by such things. Of the 3 rankings of Enigma Palace, he merely fought for the phenomenon ranking. Ancestor Ling Long established the divine power ranking in the ancient era and fame was secondary. The storyteller shook his head. Most importantly, there are 36 greater divine powers in the divine power ranking. The further one's name is ranked, the more the number of greater divine powers they inherit from the divine power ranking. The storyteller said, for example, if you're ranked 36 on the divine power ranking, you'll inherit a greater divine power from the divine power ranking. If you're ranked 35th, you'll inherit 2. If you're ranked 1st on the divine power ranking, you'll inherit a total of 36 greater divine powers. After a brief pause, the storyteller continued, not only that, the divine power ranking was refined personally by the human emperor, and he even imbued 6 of his supreme divine powers. If you're ranked top 6 on the divine power ranking, you might have a chance of obtaining a supreme divine power of the human emperor's inheritance. Su Zimo nodded silently. From the looks of it, the competition for the rankings on the divine power ranking must be extremely intense. This was not a fight for fame, but immense benefits. The further one was ranked, the more greater divine powers they would inherit. The increase in combat strength after the comprehension of a single greater divine power was extremely obvious. Thereafter, one would have a chance to aim for a better position on the divine power ranking. This was a virtuous cycle. Furthermore, the top 6 of the divine power ranking would be able to obtain a supreme divine power of the human emperor. Of course, this inheritance could not let a Mahayana patriarch comprehend a supreme divine power instantly. It still required a Mahayana patriarch to cultivate, consolidate, accumulate, and comprehend for a long time. However, supreme divine powers were way too precious and that opportunity was incredibly rare. Even in the ancient battlefield, the probability of locating a supreme divine power was extremely low. Furthermore, it was a supreme divine power cultivated by the human emperor. It was not hard to imagine that the fights between the top 6 of the divine power ranking would be even more intense. A cold glint flashed through Su Zimo's eyes as he pondered. In that case, I've got to go fight for the divine power ranking. You definitely have to fight, the storyteller said. However, you have to know that anyone who can be on the divine power ranking, even if they're ranked 36 on the divine power ranking, will be at the perfected Mahayana realm. You must not underestimate them. One could only advance to the perfected Mahayana realm after comprehending at least 10 greater divine powers. It was clear how fierce the competition of the divine power ranking was. The 34, 27, and 21 on the divine power ranking, Matriarch Yu Luo, Patriarch Fei Duan, and Patriarch Su Jing, appeared at the 10,000 race meet, and 2 of them were killed by the Dragon Phoenix True Body, leaving only Patriarch Su Jing alive. All 3 of them were at the perfected Mahayana realm. However, the Green Lotus True Body was not the taboo Dragon Phoenix after all. He had not grown to his peak, and was only at grade 8 while he was only at the early stage Mahayana realm. If he was up against a perfected Mahayana, he definitely had no chance of winning. However, the green Lotus true body had immense potential. If he were to continue growing and even get to temper supreme divine powers, he might be able to fight against Emperor weapons at the peak of Grade 8. If he could grow to Grade 9, the storyteller said, when I enter the human Emperor's palace this time round and receive its inheritance, the palace guardian will have to undergo his tribulation transcendence as well. I might not be able to help you for the time being. As for these 5 fellow Taoists, the storyteller looked at the 5 emperors beside him. They joined forces with me and forcefully brought out the divine power ranking to suppress the primordial races. However, they suffered a backlash as well. It'll probably take them at least 1,000 years to recuperate. You can only depend on yourself in the ancient battlefield. You must be careful. Su Zimo nodded. The storyteller left a few more reminders before turning to head into the human emperor's palace with the palace guardian. Boom, boom, boom. The human emperor's palace tore through the air and disappeared from everyone's line of sight. Thereafter, Monk Kong Yun and the other emperors left one after another as well. The clamor of Enigma Palace gradually dispersed and peace returned. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat as he thought of someone. He looked around but could not find any trace of that person. Consort Yu. At the 10,000 race meet, he had not expected Consort Yu to stand out when his life was on the line. But now, Consort Yu had already left, and her whereabouts were unknown. Su Zimo sighed gently. Before he could thank her, she had already left in silence. Little Fox walked over and blinked her eyes. There was a hint of reluctance in her eyes as she whispered, "Young master, are you leaving again?" Monkey and the others looked at Su Zimo with anticipation as well. Although they were reluctant, they did not say anything. Over the years, the 7 of them siblings rarely spent time together. That 100 years in Thousand Demon Valley was a rare gathering time that was undisturbed by anybody. There's no rush. Su Zimo smiled gently. I can rest for a period of time now that the matter of the primordial races has been settled. We can call Night Spirit and have a good gathering when the time comes. Great. Little Fox could not help but clap her hands and cheer. Ow, ow. Monkey thumped his chest excitedly. The spirit tiger grinned as well. A warm feeling surged through Su Zimo's heart when he saw that. While the danger of the human race might not be over yet, there should be a relatively peaceful period of time in Tianhuang mainland, no matter what now that the 10,000 race meet was over. Su Zimo believed that with his siblings by his side, they would be able to endure everything no matter what would happen in Tianhuang mainland in the future. For the next period of time, the Dragon Phoenix true body returned to the ancestral dragon ground to cultivate. The martial Dao prime body refined and absorbed many cultivation techniques and secret skills in Pingyang town and fused them into the martial Dao furnace, prepared to break through to the Mahayana realm. In the next few years, Su Zimo returned to 100 Refinement sect and tried to break through to the Mahayana realm with extreme fire. He had once brought Xiaoning back to Ethereal Peak with Jiqing Tian, Long Ro, Little Fatty, and the others to reunite with the old immortal Crane and the others. He had even been to the capital of Great Zhou and chatted with Yao Xue while reminiscing about the past. All these years, as the Empress of Great Zhou, Yao Xue spent most of her efforts on how to manage the Great Zhou Empire. Naturally, her cultivation speed slowed down. Right now, she had only just entered the Void Reversion realm. The distance between the two of them was actually getting wider. However, after what the two of them experienced back then, Su Zimo felt that Yao Xue would always be a special and irreplaceable person. Later on, Su Zimo, Night Spirit, Monkey, and the others dominated the 8 demon regions. In order to find out the reason for Qing Qing's father's death, they went to the 1,000 Spider Sand Dune and caused a huge ruckus. Even the demon patriarchs of the 1,000 Spider Sand Dune did not dare to step in. The 7 siblings even roamed the 3 oceans and snatched countless mystical treasures before returning to Tianhuang mainland. 10 years later, after bidding farewell to Night Spirit and the others, Su Zimo headed to the ancient battlefield. Chapter 1663, Hell Dao. Chapter 1663, Hell Dao. In the void of the ancient battlefield, a crack suddenly appeared and a green-robed cultivator darted in. He had refined features. It was none other than Patriarch Desolate Marshal, Su Zimo. The surroundings were barren, a desert without any signs of life. Su Zimo released his spirit consciousness and sensed carefully. Indeed, the ancient battlefield was different from Tianhuang mainland. The ancient battlefield was a world of its own, and there were many divine powers that lingered in it, lasting through the ages and possessing immense might. If conjoint body mighty figures were to enter, their bodies would not be able to withstand the pressure and be squeezed into a blood mist, dying on the spot. A gigantic golden scroll hovered in the firmaments of the ancient battlefield, was the divine power ranking that had once descended upon Enigma Palace and suppressed the primordial races. Although the ancient battlefield was extremely vast, the divine power ranking in the firmaments could be seen with a single glance in every corner of the battlefield. It was also at the center of the entire ancient battlefield. Right now, Su Zimo was only at the early stage Mahayana realm and was in no hurry to fight for a spot on the divine power ranking. Sire. The immediate concern for him was to comprehend as many lesser divine powers as possible to temper his green lotus true body continuously. As long as he comprehended enough lesser divine powers, he could attempt to comprehend greater divine powers. The creation green lotus contained some divine powers to begin with. There were lesser and greater divine powers. In fact, there were even supreme divine powers that grew endlessly. Of course, the process was gradual. Even if Su Zimo was extremely talented, he could not comprehend a supreme divine power and become an emperor right away. Su Zimo intended to look around and see if he could find any lesser divine powers to comprehend and cultivate. He did not pick a direction and chose to advance in the desert. Every single sand and stone in the ancient battlefield could contain some sort of divine power. Su Zimo walked extremely slowly, and his spirit consciousness searched the vicinity continuously. Before long, a steel appeared before him. Half of the steel was severed by some divine weapon, and the cut was incomparably smooth. There were some words etched on the remaining half of the steel that were clearly filled with the power of divine powers. There was a lesser divine power imprinted on the steel. Su Zimo looked at the steel from afar with a calm expression. Suddenly, a mocking look flashed through the depths of his eyes as he walked towards the steel. Arriving before the steel, Su Zimo focused his gaze. The runes on the steel were curved, and every single crack exuded an extremely ferocious aura, as though malevolent ghosts and fiends were baring their fangs and claws as they charged out of the steel. Suddenly, Su Zimo felt that the surrounding desert had already vanished, and he felt as though he had fallen into hell. His surroundings were dark with a chilling blood chi, and countless fiends surrounded him. He had a lost expression, as though he was stuck in hell and could not extricate himself. Suddenly, a chilling killing intent burst forth from beneath Su Zimo. Humph! Su Zimo sneered, and clarity returned to his eyes instantly. He condensed his spirit consciousness, and the scene of hell around him vanished. He stomped down heavily. Boom! There was a loud bang. He stomped on the desert beneath him and created a gigantic pit. Sand and gravel flew everywhere as a figure wielding a long sword appeared. The blade of the sword struck Su Zimo's feet. A cruel look flashed through the figure's eyes. To him, his attack was enough to pierce Su Zimo's feet. Clang! Before he could finish his thought, he heard a crisp sound. Not only did his sword fail to pierce Su Zimo's feet, it even let out a metallic sound. His sword bent as though it had struck an iron wall. Its glow dimmed, and it nearly snapped. Ah! The person's expression changed, and he arrived on the other side of Su Zimo in a flash. Narrowing his gaze, he sized up Su Zimo in silence. Su Zimo's gaze shifted to that person. It was a skinny cultivator. He was less than 10 feet tall and looked like a midget. Early stage Mahayana. Even the weakest cultivators in the ancient battlefield were Mahayana patriarchs. There's no grudge between us. Why do you want to kill me? Su Zimo asked coldly. Heh. The skinny cultivator sneered. How are you still so naive even though you're at the Mahayana realm? Has there ever been any reason for all the fighting and killing in the cultivation world? Actually, there was indeed a lesser divine power on the damaged steel. As for that skinny cultivator, he did not leave after cultivating the lesser divine power. Instead, he camped by the damaged steel to wait for other patriarchs to arrive. If he did not feel confident, he would remain silent and not attack. If he encountered someone like Su Zimo who was at early-stage Mahayana and did not seem like a threat, he would ambush and kill the latter. This skinny patriarch had tried this method a couple of times before. He even managed to obtain a few lesser divine powers from patriarchs who died. Unfortunately, the person he encountered today was Su Zimo. The moment Su Zimo saw the spirit perception, his powerful spirit perception sensed danger. Young man, hand over the dermic treasure on your feet. If you have any divine powers, hand them over as well and I can spare your life. The skinny patriarch said coldly. In his opinion, Su Zimo must have worn a boot-like dermic treasure on his feet. That was the reason why the latter's feet were invulnerable against weapons and could not be pierced by the sword. Su Zimo smiled and asked, "You don't recognize me? I don't care who you are." The skinny patriarch sneered, "I've killed more than 10 brats like you who have just entered the Mahayana realm. Is that so?" Su Zimo nodded and said indifferently, "Pay with your life today then." Before his sentence was finished, Su Zimo's figure flashed and his blood chi surged, releasing rays of light. He reached out and grabbed the skinny patriarch's head. Pissed. The skinny patriarch's expression changed. The power and aura released by Su Zimo's attack was way too strong. He actually felt a sense of danger and was alarmed. Swoosh. Without hesitation, the skinny patriarch channeled the sword in his hands and circulated his blood chi at the same time, piercing towards Su Zimo's palm. Clang! Another crisp sound rang when the sword struck Su Zimo's palm. Ordinary dermic treasures could not injure the grade 8 green lotus true body at all. Su Zimo's expression was cold and his gaze was indifferent. Exerting strength in his palm, he grabbed the sword and released a mighty jerk. Crack! 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 Cracks appeared on the sword. A tremendous power surged into the skinny patriarch's body. The skinny patriarch shuddered as though he was struck by lightning. His palm was torn and fresh blood dripped as he retreated continuously. Like a shadow, Su Zimo gave chase once more. Hell Dao! The skinny patriarch hollered and released a lesser divine power. The Hell Dao was the lesser divine power on the steel. There were many lesser divine powers, and the Hell Dao was one of the strongest among them. Su Zimo smiled gently and extended his palm slowly. In it was a green lotus that was filled with a resplendent glow. Chapter 1664, D-Clan. Chapter 1664, D-Clan. The moment the skinny patriarch released his Hell Dao, the surroundings changed instantly. Countless ghosts appeared in a sinister and terrifying manner as blood chi spread with boundless darkness. The Hell Dao was the most ferocious divine power among the 3 evil Dao. The Beast Dao could turn humans into beasts. The Hungry Ghost Dao could throw living beings into the Hungry Ghost Dao and allow them to be devoured and tortured by countless hungry ghosts. However, once one fell into the Hell Dao, they would never see the light of day ever again. This was an endless abyss that no one could break free from. However, the moment the green lotus blossomed in Su Zimo's palm, everything in hell dissipated. The entire hell was riddled with holes by the glow released by the creation green lotus. The skinny patriarch's expression changed starkly. It was only at this moment that he realized who he had encountered. "Desolate Marshal?" The skinny patriarch exclaimed softly, "You're desolate, Marshal." Although he was indifferent to everything on Tianhuang mainland, the commotion caused at the 10,000 race meet was way too great. Even the eternal human emperor descended personally. Furthermore, everyone knew that the human emperor had passed down a dermic edict personally to Desolate Marshal. Even if he was cultivating in seclusion in the ancient battlefield all year round, he knew about this matter. The creation green lotus was an utmost treasure of the universe. That was one of Desolate Marshal's greatest characteristics. It was said that desolate martial killed everyone in the 10,000 race meet, and even some Mahayana patriarchs. This skinny patriarch did not dare to fight and turned to flee. Swoosh! The skinny patriarch's figure flashed and dermic powers surged from his feet. He was extremely fast, and a series of illusions appeared as he sprinted into the distance. Heavenly feet. It was another lesser divine power. That was one of the 6 divine powers of the Buddhist monasteries. Furthermore, if this lesser divine power was cultivated to its peak, it could reach the level of a greater divine power. This was also one of the most famous escape techniques of the Buddhist monasteries. Wings appeared behind Su Zimo, and streaks of lightning appeared on his body. At the same time, he released boundless golden light and his speed rose to its limits. Ethereal wings, zephyr thunder escape, and boundless golden light burst forth at the same time. There was even an extremely powerful burst of divine power within the 3 escape techniques. After Su Zimo entered the Mahayana realm, boundless golden light had transformed completely and became a lesser divine power. A golden thunderbolt flashed and chased after the skinny patriarch. The distance between the two of them decreased rapidly. The skinny patriarch turned back and could not help but jump. Within a few dozens of breaths, Su Zimo had already closed in. Chi! Su Zimo flicked his finger gently, and a white sword beam burst forth. It descended instantly and pierced the skinny patriarch's body. The heaven-slaying sword Chi descended. Flashes of blood appeared. A murderous sword Chi burst forth from the skinny patriarch's body, and he turned into a blood mist instantly. The skinny patriarch sensed that the situation was bad, and his essence spirit had already escaped before the heaven-slaying sword Chi descended. Condense. His essence spirit tried to reconstruct his body using blood rebirth as he escaped. Mince him. Suddenly, Su Zimo's voice sounded with an unusual coldness. The heaven-slaying sword Chi within the blood mist created by the skinny patriarch's body released an endless sharpness that minced the life force in the bloody mist. The skinny patriarch's body was minced to death by the heaven-slaying sword Chi, leaving no trace of life. The prerequisite of blood rebirth was that one had to possess a drop of blood. But now, the skinny patriarch was left with nothing but a flustered essence spirit. Snap! A thunderbolt descended vertically and struck the essence spirit of the skinny patriarch. Although the skinny patriarch was not killed directly, his essence spirit was severely injured. With that delay, Su Zimo's figure descended and extended his palm, capturing the skinny patriarch's essence spirit. Without hesitation, he released the soul-searching art. A gigantic ball of light appeared in Su Zimo's palm. Black threads pierced the skinny patriarch's essence spirit and absorbed his memories continuously. Su Zimo closed his eyes and searched the most useful part of the skinny patriarch's memories. A moment later, the skinny patriarch's essence spirit withered and dimmed. As for Su Zimo, he had gained quite a bit from the soul-searching art as well. The skinny patriarch had indeed killed many people here with the help of the damaged steel earlier on and obtained 6 lesser divine powers because of that. He obtained heavenly feet by killing a monk of Hollow Monastery. Now, Su Zimo memorized all 6 lesser divine powers and was prepared to find a secluded place to comprehend them in seclusion. Upon entering the ancient battlefield, all the Mahayana patriarchs spent most of their time comprehending divine powers. Su Zimo was no exception. Su Zimo returned to the damaged steel and memorized all the words on it in his mind. Gradually, he sank into the desert and disappeared, entering a long period of seclusion cultivation. Not long after Su Zimo disappeared, someone suddenly appeared in the void not far away. It was unknown when that person had arrived or how long he had been there. However, he managed to hide from Su Zimo's senses. It was a man in white robes. His long hair fluttered and covered most of his face, revealing a faint blood scar at his glabella. Monk Daming. Monk Daming had entered the ancient battlefield slightly earlier than Su Zimo. He looked in the direction where Su Zimo disappeared and was silent for a moment. His gaze landed on the damaged steel, and he memorized the runes on it in his mind as well. Monk Daming knew that Su Zimo possessed an extremely sharp spirit perception that was unfathomable. As such, he did not dare to get too close. Far away, he looked at the steel and comprehended for a long time before heaving a sigh of relief. Desolate Marshal, you've finally caught up to me. I'll wait for you at the front. Monk Daming chanted internally and turned to leave. At the same time, in a relatively intact palace in the ancient battlefield, a middle-aged man sat in the middle. He was high and mighty. His eyes were closed, and he exuded an emperor's dominance that looked down on all living beings. This was a true emperor. Right then, four Mahayana patriarchs walked in. Their robes were similar, and they were all from Chaos Essence sect. There were 2 mid-stage Mahayanas, 1 late-stage Mahayana, and a perfected Mahayana. The perfected Mahayana was Di Yun, ranked 33 on the Divine Power ranking. Greetings, Di Emperor. When the 4 Chaos Essence sect patriarchs entered the hall and saw the high and mighty middle-aged man, their eyes were filled with reverence as they knelt and greeted loudly. This was the Di clan, a major clan of the cultivation world. Although the strength of the Di clan could not compare to the 3 aristocratic families, they had patriarchs and emperors backing them. The Di clan was the oldest clan that originated from the ancient era. Legend has it that the ancestor of the Di clan was the first person to establish an empire in Tianhuang mainland. His descendants had incomparably noble bloodlines and were blessed by the heavens. The Di clan had a long history, and almost every generation, a supreme monster incarnate would be born. In this generation, there was a monster incarnate like Di. Unfortunately, he was killed by Su Zimo and died prematurely. Chapter 1665, Mid-Stage Mahayana. Chapter 1665, Mid-Stage Mahayana. Di was the middle-aged man in the hall, and was also the only emperor of the Di clan in this generation. Although Di Yun was also a Mahayana patriarch, he was only a junior in front of Di Yu. There were way too many legends about Di Yu in the Di clan. Back then, Di Yu was already the strongest paragon and overwhelmed everything. He reached the Golden Core Realm at 16 years old, Nascent Soul Realm at 20 years old, Void Reversion Realm at 40 years old, and Dharma Characteristic Realm at 100 years old. This frightening cultivation speed was rare throughout history. In the records of the Di clan, there were more than 10,000 battles involving Di Yu. The most recent appearance by him was 10,000 years ago. Before Di Yu was conferred the title of emperor, he descended upon the North region as a Mahayana realm cultivator and attacked domineeringly, suppressing an ancestral dragon. That battle created a massive crack in the North region. Later on, that crack would become known in the cultivation world as the Dragon Burial Valley. Although the 3 patriarchs beside Di Yun were not from the Di clan, they were also disciples of Chaos Essence sect. When they heard the summon of Emperor Di Yu, they naturally did not dare to delay and rushed over right away. I heard that Desolate Marshal entered, Di Yu said slowly with his eyes still closed. That seems to be the case judging from news from the sect. The patriarch with the Dao title of Long Yin nodded slightly. However, the ancient battlefield is too huge. If Desolate Marshal were to look for a secluded place to cultivate in seclusion, it would be difficult to find him. Di Yun nodded as well. There's no news of Desolate Marshal yet. Even if we have to dig 3 feet underground, we have to find Desolate Marshal. Di Yu said coldly. The mid-stage Mahayana patriarch hesitated slightly and said in a deep voice, I heard that Desolate Marshal has the human emperor's Dharmic edict and the human emperor's seal in his hands. That's equivalent to the personal arrival of the human emperor. It's probably not easy to deal with him. What are you afraid of? Di Yun sneered. Desolate Marshal has just entered the Mahayana realm and isn't a taboo dragon phoenix. With me around, there's no way he won't be suppressed. Don't worry, Di Yu said slowly. As long as you guys can find Desolate Marshal, I'll personally kill him in the ancient battlefield at that time. The 4 patriarchs below were shocked. If an emperor were to attack personally to deal with an early-stage Mahayana patriarch, Desolate Marshal would definitely die. Of course, even if he could kill Desolate Marshal this time round, Di Yu's reputation would definitely plummet. After all, Such an attack was way too dishonorable. Furthermore, Desolate Marshal had an extremely high reputation after inheriting the title of the Human Emperor. Anyone who went against Desolate Marshal would be going against the eternal Human Emperor and the entire human race. Du continued, make good use of the time, and try your best to join forces with the Patriarchs of other sects and factions. We're definitely not the only ones who want Desolate Marshal's life. Di said in a deep voice, I understand. Patriarchs of Heavenly Dipper Sect, Malevolent Earth Sect, and Penglai Island definitely hate Desolate Marshal to the core. Matriarch Yuluo and Patriarch Fei Duan died in the hands of Desolate Marshal's taboo clone. Du nodded slightly. It's not just the three major sections. There's also Sword Sect, Zephyr Thunder Palace, Hidden Death Sect, Poison Sect, and Corpse Refinement Cult. You guys have to join forces with them as well. I heard that Desolate Marshal did not give malevolent spirit fruits to those sections. Their patriarchs must definitely have a grudge against him too. If we use half of the Mahayana patriarchs in the ancient battlefield, I don't believe we can't find Desolate Marshal. After a brief pause, Du continued, we have to find him as soon as possible. Once Monk Kong Yuan and the others are healed, it'll be much more difficult to kill him then. Understood. Du nodded. You guys can leave. Du waved his hand. Du and the other three cupped their fists and retreated. The reason why Du wanted to kill Desolate Marshal was not merely because of a feud within the clan. At their cultivation realm, they wouldn't care about the death of a descendant that was countless generations away. What truly tempted them were many powerful treasures and supreme divine powers. The Human Emperor's seal was not only an emperor weapon refined personally by the Human Emperor. It was said that there was even a supreme divine power of the Human Emperor etched on the Human Emperor's seal, 3 heads, 6 arms. If he could obtain the Human Emperor's seal, he would have a chance to cultivate 3 heads, 6 arms, and his combat strength would increase exponentially. That was one of the strongest supreme divine powers of the Human Emperor in the past. After spending 10 years in Tianhuang mainland, Su Zimo dominated the 4 regions, 3 oceans, and 1 continent and caused quite a stir. However, Du did not attack. It wasn't because he didn't want to, it was because he had reservations. Su Zimo was of no threat to begin with. However, he had a clone that was a taboo dragon phoenix. Behind the taboo dragon phoenix was a behemoth like the dragon race and a supreme expert like the Chen Dragon Emperor. Du was worried that if he tried to kill Su Zimo, he might fall into the latter's trap and encounter a terrifying existence like the Chen Dragon Emperor. That was the reason why he only dared to lay his hands on Su Zimo after the latter entered the ancient battlefield. Here, he could act without reservations. Cultivation was endless and time flew by. In the blink of an eye, 100 years had passed since Su Zimo entered the ancient battlefield. In the past 100 years, Tianhuang mainland underwent tremendous changes. After the 10,000 race meet, the territories of the primordial 8 races expanded. Countless humans moved away from the territory of the primordial races. The human race and the primordial races restrained one another. Although there were occasional conflicts, there were no major battles. Because the Human Emperor passed down his title, Desolate Marshal was renowned throughout the world. The martial Dao flourished and more living beings began to cultivate it. Among them, some paragons were born. Under Night Spirit's lead, the half-martial ancestor experts of the Kunlun ruins left the Kunlun ruins through Fairy Ling Long's secret passage. They would never be able to advance to the Mahayana realm in the Kunlun ruins. That was because once they entered the Mahayana realm, they would trigger a divine power storm and die on the spot. They could only break through to the Mahayana realm upon returning to Tianhuang mainland. This was an extremely powerful force that could not be ignored. Although there were no patriarchs or emperors in the Kunlun race, there were many half-martial ancestor experts. If they returned to Tianhuang mainland and broke through to the Mahayana realm with the help of the malevolent spirit fruits, that faction would definitely surpass any super sect. If the Kunlun race suddenly appeared on Tianhuang mainland, they would be too striking. Under Night Spirit's lead, the Kunlun race settled down in Ethereal Peak for the time being. 100 years. Night Spirit had long entered the Mahayana realm. After the 10,000 race meet, Monkey, the spirit tiger, and the others broke through one after another and became old demons that ruled over a region. However, nothing seemed to have changed in the ancient battlefield after 100 years. The cultivators here were all Mahayana patriarchs. Every patriarch had a lifespan of 100,000 years. 100 years was a fleeting duration for those patriarchs. This day, suddenly, a violent fluctuation came from the middle of a desolate desert and countless gravel collapsed, forming a gigantic pit. A figure tore through the air and was filled with a domineering divine power. He released a resplendent glow that resembled a jade-green lotus that swayed in the desert. Every single sway caused the massive ancient battlefield to tremble. Su Zimo had broken out of seclusion. Mid-stage Mahayana. Chapter 1666, Slaying a Patriarch. Chapter 1666, Slaying a Patriarch. One could only advance to the mid-stage Mahayana realm after comprehending more than 10 lesser divine powers. The speed of comprehending 10 lesser divine powers within 100 years was already extremely shocking. On the one hand, it was because Su Zimo was equivalent to a humanoid creation Green Lotus that could steal the creation of heaven and earth. His speed of comprehension of divine powers far surpassed most cultivators. On the other hand, Su Zimo witnessed the earth-shaking battle between many emperors at the 10,000 race meet personally. A battle of that level was a rare and precious experience for him. Most importantly, the human emperor once used his Green Lotus true body to fight against the heavenly god emperor and the other emperors of the primordial races. At that time, in the eyes of many cultivators, it was as though only supreme divine powers had been released the entire time in that battle. However, Su Zimo's black-haired essence spirit could sense it clearly in his consciousness. In the battle, the eternal human emperor made use of many lesser and greater divine powers as well. The reason why Su Zimo broke through the seclusion this time round was because he had encountered a bottleneck. If he wanted to break through to the late-stage Mahayana realm, he had to comprehend a greater divine power. Su Zimo's Green Lotus true body condensed the Tao techniques of the immortal, Buddhist, and fiend sects as well as cultivated 3 lesser divine powers. There were many greater divine powers of the immortal, Buddhist, and fiend sects, and he had a chance to comprehend them all. However, comprehending a greater divine power was way too difficult unless there were other extreme methods. Su Zimo looked at the divine power ranking hovering in the firmaments in deep thought. Up till now, he was not prepared to fight for the divine power ranking. Given his current combat strength, he could definitely fight for a position on the divine power ranking if he used all his trump cards. However, it was extremely difficult for him to get into the top 6 of the divine power ranking. Su Zimo intended to comprehend a greater divine power and advance to the late-stage Mahayana realm before fighting for the divine power ranking. Desolate Marshal, so you're here. Right then, a cold voice sounded not far away. In the void, a figure appeared slowly and sneered at Su Zimo. This patriarch's face was yellow, and he was as skinny as a bamboo pole. His clothes were colorful and emitted a faint blood stench. Su Zimo's expression was indifferent. His advancement to the Mahayana realm had caused quite a stir and would naturally attract other cultivators. Although the patriarch looked like a sickly child, his body was filled with poisonous beings. If one focused their attention, they would notice that the colorful clothes were moving slightly and were formed by various poisonous beings. A Mahayana patriarch of poison sect. Su Zimo gave the person a casual glance and said indifferently, "You're an early-stage Mahayana. Do you have a death wish?" Although this patriarch of poison sect lingered in the ancient battlefield for more than 10,000 years, he had only comprehended a few lesser divine powers and was only at the early-stage Mahayana realm. However, even mid-stage Mahayana patriarchs were unwilling to fight him. In terms of strength, mid-stage Mahayana patriarchs could naturally suppress this patriarch of poison sect. However, the patriarch of poison sect was covered in poisonous bugs. If anyone was bitten by accident, they would be half dead even if they did not die. Most Mahayana patriarchs would choose to avoid poison sect patriarchs unless an irreconcilable conflict broke out. Desolate Marshal, others might be afraid of you, but I'm not. The patriarch of poison sect named Luo-yin said coldly, furthermore, I don't mind telling you that there are countless Mahayana patriarchs in the ancient battlefield searching for you wildly. Once they find you, you'll definitely die. Is that so? Suddenly, Desolate Marshal raised his leg and stomped on the ground. Poof! In the desert beneath his feet, a ball of blood suddenly burst forth with an incomparably nauseating stench. Before a poisonous bug could reveal itself, he stomped down and crushed it. Su Zimo swept his gaze across Patriarch Luo-yin and said coldly, You must have a death wish for attacking me. Swoosh! In a flash, Su Zimo arrived before Patriarch Luo-yin in the blink of an eye. At an extremely fast speed, he extended his finger and stabbed towards the latter's glabella. Humph! Patriarch Luo-yin's eyes shone sinisterly and his body trembled, emitting a bedazzling light that shot towards Su Zimo. He had nurtured those poisonous bugs for tens of thousands of years. Even late-stage or perfected Mahayana patriarchs would have difficulty surviving after being bitten by so many poisonous bugs. However, Su Zimo's gaze was like lightning, and he did not dodge or avoid. He ignored the incoming poisonous bugs and continued stabbing with his finger. At the last minute, he changed tactics and conjured a sword art with two closed fingers, releasing a heaven-slaying sword chi. The change was so fast that Patriarch Luo-yin could not react in time. Poof! The moment the heaven-slaying sword chi pierced Patriarch Luo-yin's glabella, the poisonous bugs landed on Su Zimo and gnawed wildly. Desolate Marshal, you're ruthless. Patriarch Luo-yin's eyes gradually dimmed. He had not expected that Su Zimo would not dodge his poisonous bugs at all and pierce his consciousness with a single finger. Even his essence spirit could not escape. See, it's fine even if I die. Patriarch Luo-yin's final remnant consciousness said fiercely, Before long, you'll die with me. I'll watch you die from the poison here. At that moment, Su Zimo's body was filled with dense poisonous bugs, and there was almost no part of his body that was exposed. Anyone who saw that would feel their scalps tingle. Who could survive against so many poisonous bugs? Seems like you don't know what the creation green lotus is at all. Right then, Su Zimo's voice sounded. It was still calm and emotionless. All of you, get lost. Suddenly, Su Zimo hollered and channeled his blood chi. Streaks of green light burst forth from his body and shone in all directions with an endless brilliance. Against the green light, the poisonous bugs creaked and fell off, struggling on the ground in extreme pain. The creation green lotus was an utmost treasure of the universe and was flawless and immune to poison. The green glow illuminated the skies and spilled onto the mountains and rivers. It was supreme and was the most effective against the filthy poisonous bugs. Even ordinary lotus flowers could be pure and untainted, let alone the creation green lotus. All the accomplished monks with the deepest cultivations of the Buddhist monasteries, such as Bodhi and Buddha who had achieved the Tao, sat on various lotus platforms. It was clear how mysterious the lotus flowers were. A single cognitive deviation caused Patriarch Luo-yin to die. Su Zimo was not willing to look through Patriarch Luo-yin's storage bag and released a ball of Tao fire, tossing it on the ladder. The moment the Tao fire descended, poisonous bugs flew out from Patriarch Luo-yin's body one after another. His body burned with flames as he struggled continuously. However, before long, they were burned to ashes mercilessly by the Tao fire. Roar! Right then, a ferocious roar sounded from afar, approaching Su Zimo rapidly as though a supreme fiend had appeared. On the other side, powerful auras burst forth and sped over. Su Zimo had already cultivated the heavenly eye, heavenly hearing, and heavenly feet of the Buddhist monasteries. He could already sense those experts from afar. More and more patriarchs charged in his direction. At that moment, Su Zimo could rely on the three divine powers of the Buddhist monasteries to find a gap and escape. However, he smirked and did not leave. Instead, he stood on the spot motionlessly, waiting for the experts to arrive. Chapter 1667, Sword Chi Prison. Chapter 1667, Sword Chi Prison. From the west, a tall and burly figure leaped over. Every single jump could cross dozens of feet. Each time he landed, the ground would quake in resonance. In the blink of an eye, the tall figure had already closed in. The figure was covered in golden fur and emitted the stench of rotting corpses. His 10 fingernails were long and curved slightly, resembling 10 cold curved sabers. That was a battle corpse of Corpse Refinement cult. A patriarch of Corpse Refinement cult hid in the vicinity and did not appear. However, the battle corpse he was controlling in secret had arrived before Su Zimo. It was clear that this battle corpse was also a Mahayana patriarch when it was alive. Later on, it was refined with many secret skills of Corpse Refinement cult, allowing such a monster to be created. Roar. Naturally, the battle corpse was fearless against Su Zimo and let out a roar, causing a nauseating yellow gooey liquid to ooze from the corner of its mouth. On the other side, 2 Mahayana patriarchs of Heavenly Dipper sect arrived. The person on the left had a black birthmark in the shape of a leaf on his face. His Dao title was Ba Yu, and he was at the late-stage Mahayana realm. The one on the right had a long face and a cold gaze. His Dao title was Breaking Light, and he was at the mid-stage Mahayana realm. These 2 patriarchs had once been to Enigma Palace together with Matriarch Yuluo and the others. From the west, 3 cultivators in black robes arrived together with a thick, malevolent aura. They were patriarchs of Malevolent Earth sect. There was a mid-stage Mahayana and 2 late-stage Mahayanas. The sound of a tsunami could be heard from the east. Countless dermic powers gathered, and a Mahayana patriarch surfed over on a wave. He wielded a silver, 3-pronged halberd, and his body was shrouded by steam with a torrential aura. Patriarch Fei Lang of Penglai Island, who was at the perfected Mahayana realm. South. 2 patriarchs of Chaos Essence sect were speeding over. One of them was Di Yun, a perfected Mahayana and 33 on the Divine Power ranking. The other was late-stage Mahayana Patriarch Long Yin of Chaos Essence sect. The 2 of them arrived the moment they received the news, and there were other Chaos Essence sect patriarchs on their way still. Even more Mahayana patriarchs were rushing over. Su Zimo's ears twitched, and he could hear the sound of clothes fluttering in all directions. Desolate Marshall's appearance had alarmed countless Mahayana patriarchs. The ones before him were only the patriarchs who were closest to the area. As time passed by, more Mahayana patriarchs would arrive. What are you guys doing with such a grand formation? Su Zimo surveyed his surroundings calmly and asked. Desolate Marshall? Patriarch Ba Yu said coldly, your death has arrived. A patriarch of Malevolent Earth sect said coldly, Desolate Marshall, you made a name for yourself in Enigma Palace and even killed Patriarch Fei Duan of our sect. I'll make you pay with your life today. Patriarch Fei Duan was killed by the Dragon Phoenix True Body. If they were up against the Dragon Phoenix True Body, these patriarchs would truly not dare to speak. However, the Green Lotus True Body before them was only at the mid-stage Mahayana realm and had only comprehended 10 lesser divine powers. Everyone did not have much to fear. Furthermore, they had the advantage in numbers. There were even experts of the divine power ranking like Di Yun among the Mahayana patriarchs. It was more than enough to suppress a mid-stage Mahayana like Desolate Marshall. Di Yun glared at Su Zimo and said slowly, Desolate Marshall, it will be your greatest mistake to incur the wrath of my D clan. Everyone, kill Desolate Marshall right now. Di Yun waved his arm. Sure. Many Mahayana patriarchs attacked one after another, and many dermic treasures transformed into divine lights that intertwined in midair, almost forming an impenetrable trap without any gaps. Many dermic treasures smashed towards Su Zimo. Good timing. Su Zimo burst into laughter and roared into the skies. Churning his blood chi, the sound of a tsunami echoed from his body as his aura rose rapidly. Swoosh! Su Zimo's figure seemed to have vanished, and in his place was a creation green lotus that soared into the skies. It shone with a resplendent light that illuminated the world. Many dermic treasures were illuminated by the green light and could not smash down. All of them froze in midair and swayed slightly, as though they were enduring immense pressure. None of the dermic treasures landed on the creation green lotus. After a momentary stalemate, the dermic treasures shone brighter and brighter instead, trembling more intensely. "Dissipate," Su Zimo's voice sounded, and he hollered softly. The creation green lotus swayed gently, and the entire void seemed to materialize, forming ripples that struck the many dermic treasures. Bang, bang, bang. Some powerful dermic treasures were sent flying by the void ripples. Some dermic treasures of early-stage Mahayana patriarchs were even crushed into dust by the void ripples, dissipating into the wind. Massive cracks appeared on the dermic treasures of some mid-stage Mahayana patriarchs as well. They dimmed and fell from midair, turning into scrap metal. Only some dermic treasures of late-stage Mahayana patriarchs that had undergone the tempering of greater divine powers could remain intact against the impact of the creation green lotus. Poof, poof, poof. Some Mahayana patriarchs shuddered and spat out blood. Many of those dermic treasures were the destiny dermic treasures of Mahayana patriarchs. With their destiny dermic treasures severely injured, the Mahayana patriarchs had their essence spirits implicated and were affected as well. Humph! Su Zimo's figure reappeared and vanished from the spot with a flash. Arriving before the three malevolent Earth sect patriarchs, he flipped his palm and smashed down. Poof! The dermic treasure of a malevolent Earth sect patriarch shattered, and he spat out blood. Before he could react, Su Zimo slapped him to death. His essence spirit was already shattered by Su Zimo's power while it was within his consciousness. Sensing that the situation was bad, the other two malevolent Earth sect patriarchs turned and fled, wanting to distance themselves from Su Zimo. Trying to flee? Sneering coldly, Su Zimo closed two fingers and conjured a sword art, slashing gently in the direction of the two malevolent Earth sect patriarchs. Tsk, tsk, tsk. 1,000 heaven-slaying sword chi burst forth from Su Zimo's sword finger and enveloped the two malevolent Earth sect patriarchs instantly, forming a sword chi prison. Initially, the two malevolent Earth sect patriarchs could still rely on the divine powers they cultivated to fight against the heaven-slaying sword chi. However, there were 1,000 heaven-slaying sword chi that were extremely sharp and sliced the two malevolent Earth sect patriarchs continuously. Within a few breaths, blood scars appeared on the two malevolent Earth sect patriarchs. Another 3 breaths passed. The bodies of the two malevolent Earth sect patriarchs were sliced into pieces, turning into 2 blood mists. After a single breath, the 2 balls of blood mist were minced to death by the heaven-slaying sword chi, and the essence spirits of the 2 malevolent Earth sect patriarchs died within. 2 malevolent Earth sect patriarchs were ground to death by the 1,000 heaven-slaying sword chi. You guys really think that you can kill me with your skills? Su Zimo looked down at everyone with a burning gaze. His body was shrouded by a green glow, and his aura was torrential. He was like a god, and no one dared to meet his gaze. Chapter 1668, Immense Life Force. Chapter 1668, Immense Life Force. Great Rain Summoning. Patriarch Fei Lang of Panlai Island waved his trident and pointed it at Su Zimo, releasing a greater divine power. Boom, boom, boom. Thunder rumbled, and in the blink of an eye, dark clouds filled the skies above Su Zimo. The next moment, a downpour showered down. This was no ordinary rainwater. Every single drop of rain was condensed from an extremely powerful divine power. Like needles and swords, they could penetrate a cultivator's body. Great Wind Summoning. Diyun of Chaos Essence Sect took out a horsetail whip from his storage bag and waved it towards Su Zimo, causing a wild wind to howl from the flat plains. This was the astral wind above the 9 heavens. It could pass through the 5 organs and even destroy a cultivator's essence spirit. Cultivators with lesser cultivation realms would be blown apart by the great wind summoning, leaving nothing but corpses. Roar! On the other side, the golden-haired battle corpse roared and charged towards Su Zimo with a menacing expression. The other Mahayana patriarchs attacked as well. Instantly, countless divine powers tore through the air with a massive might as sand and rocks flew. Su Zimo had a fearless expression as his blood chi surged with the sound of a tsunami. A green glow burst forth and blocked the incoming downpour. Beep, beep. The rain fell continuously as though it was endless. Before long, it penetrated the green glow and landed on the green lotus true body. Patriarch Fei Lang's eyes lit up. Without the protection of the green glow, his greater divine power was enough to kill Su Zimo. Clang, clang, clang. However, when the raindrops landed on the green lotus true body, not only did no blood appear, they shattered and the crisp sound of jade striking could be heard. Although the great wind summoning dispersed the green glow around Su Zimo, it could not injure the green lotus true body at all. Su Zimo's figure stood in the wild wind without budging at all. His eyes were frighteningly bright, and he was filled with a chilling, killing intent. What? Patriarch Fei Lang's eyes widened, and his pupils constricted. His greater divine power could not injure Su Zimo's green lotus true body. Swoosh! With a flash of golden lightning, Su Zimo's figure vanished from the spot. The next moment, Su Zimo arrived before Patriarch Fei Lang. Patriarch Fei Lang reacted extremely quickly as well and conjured a gigantic wave beside him, protecting his body completely as he tried to distance himself. Kill! Su Zimo hollered and released a sound domain secret skill. Swoosh! The torrential wave dissipated instantly against the vibration of Su Zimo's sound domain secret skill. Patriarch Fei Lang's figure was completely revealed as well. His eyes were bloodshot and 2 streams of blood oozed from his ears. He was dealt a huge blow. Kill! Patriarch Fei Lang hollered as well and waved his silver trident with both hands, piercing towards Su Zimo. The gigantic halberd was filled with an extremely powerful divine power. Su Zimo did not dodge or avoid. He reached out with his fair palm and grabbed the tip of the 3-pronged halberd. No matter how Patriarch Fei Lang channeled his blood chi and divine powers, the halberd did not budge in Su Zimo's palm. Die! Su Zimo hollered and gripped the tip of the halberd. He exerted strength and pushed forward viciously. The trident slid out of Patriarch Fei Lang's palm and its tail pierced his chest, causing blood to spew. The tremendous power ruptured Patriarch Fei Lang's chest. The difference in strength was too great. Su Zimo flicked his finger gently, and a heaven-slaying sword chi burst forth, tearing through the air. Patriarch Fei Lang's essence spirit had just escaped and was killed before it could form a physical body. A perfected Mahayana patriarch was killed by the green lotus true body on the spot. This scene shocked the Mahayana patriarchs present. Although Patriarch Fei Lang was not an expert on the divine power ranking, he was also at the perfected Mahayana realm and had comprehended more than 10 greater divine powers. However, he could not defend against Su Zimo's attacks. With the slight delay Su Zimo spent to kill Patriarch Fei Lang, many lesser and greater divine powers smashed down. The green lotus true body had nowhere to run. Bang, bang, bang. Against so many divine powers, Su Zimo's green lotus true body could not stand in midair and was drowned instantly, smashing heavily onto the ground. Sand and gravel flew everywhere as a human-shaped pit was formed on the ground. Is he dead? Desolate Marshal shouldn't have died yet. I didn't see his essence spirit escape. It's fine. Even if he's not dead, Desolate Marshal will definitely be severely injured. That's right. If we can't kill Desolate Marshal with this wave of attacks, we'll just release another wave of attacks. If 2 won't do, we'll use 10. Even if we have to drag things out, we can exhaust Desolate Marshal to death. Many Mahayana patriarchs discussed as they closed in to the pit. Fu-fu-fu. Right then, mocking laughter sounded from the pit. Su Zimo stood up slowly from the pit. Although his green robes were tattered and he was filled with injuries, His eyes were still frighteningly bright. "You're still laughing?" Patriarch Bayu of Heavenly Dipper sect grit his teeth. "We'll make sure you can't even cry later." Surveying his surroundings, Su Zimo shook his head gently and mocked. "You guys are still too weak." Under the gazes of many Mahayana patriarchs, the wounds on Su Zimo healed at a visible speed. In the blink of an eye, those injuries healed. Su Zimo had already recovered to his original state. The expressions of many Mahayana patriarchs changed slightly. The bloodline of Mahayana patriarchs was extremely strong after experiencing the baptism of divine powers. However, injuries caused by dermic treasures would have divine powers lingering in the wounds. As such, it would take a long time to recover from those. Many patriarchs had never seen someone recover with the same speed as Su Zimo. "Everyone, attack! Desolate Marshal must be stalling for time." Di Yun reminded hurriedly and attacked right away, releasing another greater divine power. At the same time, he waved his horsetail whip and whipped Su Zimo. Bang! 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 Many Mahayana patriarchs reacted as well and channeled their essence spirits once more, releasing lesser and greater divine powers. Many divine powers blanketed the skies and could not be avoided. Once again, Su Zimo's figure was drowned by many divine powers. Many patriarchs could clearly see that the many divine powers had smashed onto Su Zimo. They even saw blood splatter. A moment later, the power of divine powers dissipated and the patriarchs focused their gazes. In the desert, Su Zimo crawled up slowly and shrugged his neck. His body was filled with wounds, and there were at least 100 of them. However, the wounds were filled with green glows and healed rapidly. In the blink of an eye, the green Lotus true body had returned to normal. Pissed, the many Mahayana patriarchs gasped. His regeneration capabilities and immense life force had already surpassed their understanding. Chapter 1669, Attack of the Yu Emperor. Chapter 1669, Attack of the Yu Emperor. After the creation, Green Lotus grew to grade 8. Even many greater divine powers could not shake its foundation. Even if it was injured, the powerful life force in the creation Green Lotus would circulate on its own and its injuries would recover in the blink of an eye. The surrounding Mahayana patriarchs were secretly alarmed. If this continued, they would be exhausted to death before anything happened to Su Zimo. "Aren't you guys here to snatch the human emperor's seal?" Surveying his surroundings, Su Zimo slapped his storage bag and said slowly, "Now, I'll let you guys have a taste of the might of the human emperor's seal." In Su Zimo's palm was a gigantic seal. It was pitch black and cold with defined edges, emanating an ancient and powerful might of the Emperor Dao. Boom! Su Zimo tossed his palm, and the human emperor's seal descended from the skies, smashing towards Patriarch Bayu of Heavenly Dipper sect with a terrifying might. Patriarch Bayu's expression changed. The human emperor's seal was a massive weapon of Tianhuang mainland, and even emperors of the primordial races would be smashed into a bloody mist against it. Although Su Zimo was at the mid-stage Mahayana realm and could not release the full might of the human emperor's seal, Patriarch Bayu did not dare to fight him head-on and turned to flee. However, while he was fast, the speed of the human emperor's seal's descent was even faster. Swoosh! A large shadow enveloped down. Before the human emperor's seal landed completely, the immense pressure had already descended and Patriarch Bayu's speed was greatly reduced, as though he had fallen into a swamp. Patriarch Tyrant Yu's face was pale. Seeing that he could not escape from the range of the human emperor's seal, he did not have time to think and swung the saber in his hands, slashing down viciously at the human emperor's seal. Boom! Boom! The human emperor's seal descended and the ground shook. Patriarch Tyrant Yu was smashed into a meat sludge by the human emperor's seal and died. When Di Yun saw that, his expression changed with a hint of fear. However, he was not afraid. That was because as long as time passed, the emperor of the Di clan would arrive here. At that time, even if Su Zimo had the human emperor's seal, he would be suppressed mercilessly by the emperor. More and more Mahayana patriarchs gathered here. Among them were some Mahayana patriarchs of Snowdrift Valley, Overlord Palace, and Dipankara Monastery. Fellow Taoist Desolate Marshal, don't worry. I'll help you. A patriarch of Overlord Palace carried a gigantic spear and walked towards Su Zimo. Count me in. A patriarch of Snowdrift Valley stood out as well. After the 10,000 race meet, not all the super sects in Tianhuang mainland were enemies with Su Zimo. For example, Snowdrift Valley, Overlord Palace, and the 6 Buddhist monasteries had immense respect for Desolate Marshal. It was not only because the eternal human emperor passed down his title. More than that, Desolate Marshal stood out at the 10,000 race meet and led many humans to fight against the primordial races. It was also because Desolate Marshal had selflessly given them malevolent spirit fruits. In the hearts of many Mahayana patriarchs, Desolate Marshal was this generation's human emperor. Thank you for your kind intentions, fellow Taoists. There's no need for you guys to attack. Just stand by and watch. Suddenly, Su Zimo declared. The many Mahayana patriarchs of Overlord Palace, Snowdrift Valley, and the other factions paused and hesitated, not understanding why Su Zimo did not let them interfere. Boom! Another loud bang sounded. Su Zimo had controlled the human emperor's seal to smash another Mahayana patriarch to death. Bang! 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 Di Yun and the other Mahayana patriarchs attacked one after another and released another wave of attacks towards Su Zimo. However, they could not injure the foundation of the Green Lotus true body. On the contrary, under Su Zimo's control, the human emperor's seal barged through the crowd. If they were struck head-on by the human emperor's seal, they would turn into a blood mist. If their essence spirits were any slower in escaping, they would die on the spot. Even if they were only scratched by the human emperor's seal, their tendons and bones would definitely be snapped. Although Di Yun was an expert rank 33 on the divine power ranking, he could not fight the human emperor's seal head-on and could only rely on the horsetail whip in his hands to try his best to neutralize the power of the human emperor's seal. Su Zimo carried the human emperor's seal and charged towards Di Yun in huge strides. Many Mahayana patriarchs were wary of the power of the human emperor's seal and avoided it, not daring to advance. The two of them were in a standoff in the chaotic battlefield. 33 on the divine power ranking. Su Zimo sneered, I'll remove you from the divine power ranking today. Mountain lift. Di Yun did not dare to be careless and channeled his essence spirit hurriedly, conjuring a greater divine power. Waving his horsetail whip, he moved a gigantic mountain from afar and charged towards Su Zimo. Shatter. Su Zimo raised the human emperor's seal and smashed it towards the mountain. Boom, boom. Sand and gravel flew everywhere. Compared to the gigantic mountain, the human emperor's seal was incomparably tiny. However, it shattered the mountain peak into countless boulders that fell one after another. Su Zimo passed through the dust clouds of sand and gravel and charged towards Di Yun. Moonchase. Di Yun's expression changed slightly. Not wanting to fight Su Zimo head-on, he turned and fled at a frightening speed. Mountain Lift and Moonchase were two greater divine powers. The former focused on strength while the latter was a divine power of movement speed. Root. Su Zimo channeled his essence spirit and murmured. With each step Di Yun took, thick roots would grow from the void beneath his feet and coil around his ankle. Of course, this was only a lesser divine power and could not restrict Di Yun's figure. Di Yun channeled his blood chi and could regain his freedom with a slight struggle. However, those roots still had a huge impact on Di Yun. Under the constant disruption, Di Yun's speed gradually slowed down. As for Su Zimo, he closed in rapidly with his heavenly feet and said coldly with a murderous aura, I think the Di clan is tired of living in the ancient battlefield. Since that's the case, I'll fulfill your wish. As he said that, Su Zimo tossed the human emperor's seal in his hands and smashed it towards Di Yun. Great protection technique. Di Yun roared and divine powers emanated from his body, forming an impenetrable barrier around him. Boom! The human emperor's seal smashed down. With a snap, The human emperor's seal shattered the Great Protection Technique, and the aftershock collided with Di Yun, shattering his body into pieces. Di Yun's essence spirit had escaped. Die. Su Zimo's gaze intensified as he closed two fingers and conjured a sword art, prepared to kill Di Yun on the spot. Suddenly, an extremely terrifying might descended, and the entire battlefield suddenly fell into silence. All the Mahayana patriarchs looked up with shocked expressions. The might of the Emperor Dao. An emperor had arrived personally. "You Emperor, save me," Di Yun exclaimed hurriedly when he sensed the aura. It was the Emperor of the Di clan, Di Yu. "Desolate Marshal, hand over your life." Suddenly, a gigantic palm descended from the void, covering the skies as it grabbed towards Su Zimo. An emperor had taken action personally to suppress a mid-stage Mahayana. There was no doubt about the outcome at all. The patriarchs of Overlord Palace, Snowdrift Valley, and the other sects suddenly thought of a possibility. Did Su Zimo stop them from interfering earlier on because he had predicted this? Chapter 1670, Annihilation and Rebirth. Chapter 1670, Annihilation and Rebirth. Su Zimo's expression was calm, and he was not surprised at all. The storyteller had long reminded him that emperors would attack him in the ancient battlefield. At that moment, Di Yun's essence spirit fled into the distance. If Su Zimo wanted to avoid the attack of the Emperor Yu, he would not be able to kill Di Yun. Su Zimo's gaze was cold as he ignored the gigantic palm that descended from the skies. Closing two fingers, he released dozens of heaven-slaying sword chi instantly and encircled Di Yun's essence spirit. "Desolate Marshal, you." Di Yun's essence spirit's expression changed. Initially, he thought that he had already managed to escape. Di Yun did not expect that Su Zimo would disregard his own life and the attack of an emperor just to kill him here. Under normal circumstances, a single heaven-slaying sword chi was enough to kill a patriarch's essence spirit. In order to kill him completely and prevent him from escaping, Su Zimo released dozens of heaven-slaying sword chi and sealed his escape path completely. SK, SK, TSK. Countless sword chi weaved together to form an impenetrable sword net the size of a palm that enveloped Di Yun's essence spirit. "Desolate Marshal, you won't be able to survive either if you kill me," Di Yun roared. The next moment, his essence spirit was minced by countless heaven-slaying sword chi on the spot and died. At the same time, the Emperor's palm descended and slapped Su Zimo's green lotus true body heavily. That was the power of an emperor. It was fused with the power of a supreme divine power. The difference between them was too great. Although the creation green lotus was strong, it merely underwent the baptism of lesser divine powers and was far from the peak of grade 8. The Yu Emperor slapped down and shattered the grade 8 creation green lotus almost instantly, causing it to explode on the spot with blood splattering everywhere. Many Mahayana patriarchs had conflicted expressions when they saw that. Some of them gloated, some of them stayed out of things while others revealed pity and sadness. Desolate Marshal was the successor chosen by the eternal human emperor after all. To think that he would be killed by an emperor just like that after just advancing to the mid-stage Mahayana realm. Suddenly, a streak of light flew out from the shattered blood mist of the green lotus true body and sped into the distance. Many cultivators watched with widened eyes. The streak of light was a scroll. Within the scroll was a storage bag, a pitch-black seal, and an essence spirit. That scroll is the human emperor's Dharmic edict. Some Mahayana patriarchs who had been to the 10,000 race meet recognized the scroll right away and exclaimed, "Desolate Marshal isn't dead." Another person said in a deep voice, although his green lotus true body was destroyed, his essence spirit hid in the human emperor's Dharmic edict and escaped. Condense. Right then, Su Zimo's voice sounded from the human emperor's Dharmic edict. In the blink of an eye, the green lotus true body was formed. The life force of the creation green lotus is way too strong. It can be reborn with a drop of blood after being destroyed by the power of an emperor. I heard that before Desolate Marshal entered the Mahayana realm, this green lotus true body could already use blood rebirth. Now that he's already at the mid-stage Mahayana realm, his regeneration capabilities are naturally even more terrifying. Su Zimo's body recovered to normal and his face was slightly pale. He sprinted into the distance as fast as lightning and wings flapped behind him, emitting electric arcs. At the same time, he released boundless golden light and heavenly feet and other lesser divine powers at an extremely fast speed. Many Mahayana patriarchs released their full strength hurriedly and followed, wanting to see the final outcome. Humph! The figure of the Emperor Yu appeared in the firmaments and exuded a tremendous might. With a cold expression, he said coldly, "You're trying to escape under my watch?" As an emperor, it was already embarrassing for him to not be able to kill Su Zimo with a single attack. It would be way too embarrassing if Desolate Marshal were to escape. Bang! With a fling of his robes, a horsetail whip tore through the air and 3,000 silver threads whipped Su Zimo like 3,000 terrifying whips. The 3,000 silver threads seemed to cross the void. No matter how fast Su Zimo escaped, he could not escape from the whipping of the 3,000 silver threads. Poof! That horsetail whip was the Destiny Emperor weapon of the Emperor Yu. When such a powerful power whipped Su Zimo, the green Lotus true body turned into a blood mist instantly, and more than half of the life force in his body was minced by the 3,000 silver threads. Su Zimo did not use the human emperor's seal to defend. He knew very well that although the human emperor's seal could withstand the whipping of the emperor's horsetail whip, it could not withstand the power of an emperor, and he would still be severely injured. Furthermore, if he summoned the human emperor's seal, it would fall right into the hands of the Yu Emperor. The Emperor Yu would definitely snatch the human emperor's seal right away, while he had no way of fighting for it. The green Lotus true body was destroyed by the horsetail whip of the Emperor Yu, and more than half of its life force was destroyed. However, a portion of his bloodline was wrapped within the human emperor's Dharmic edict by Su Zimo as he fled from the battlefield. Su Zimo's essence spirit, storage bag, and the human emperor's seal were all hidden within the human emperor's Dharmic edict. Condense. Su Zimo called softly. In the blink of an eye, the green Lotus true body was formed once more. The Yu Emperor's expression darkened completely. Although he destroyed Desolate Marshal's green Lotus true body twice in succession, he could not kill Desolate Marshal on the spot. That enraged him. Chaos Essence Grotto. He channeled his essence spirit and waved his hands. Suddenly, the void in front of Su Zimo collapsed and a gigantic, dark hole appeared, spinning continuously with a powerful suction force. Su Zimo's expression changed and he stopped in his tracks. However, the gigantic cave was filled with an extremely domineering divine power. Even if he wanted to stop, he could not control his body and was pulled towards the cave. That's the supreme divine power, Chaos Essence Grotto. I heard that once you fall into Chaos Essence Grotto, it's dark and you can't sense time and space. Even Dharmic treasures will be minced into dust and turned into nothingness, let alone cultivators. That's right. Once you fall into Chaos Essence Grotto, don't even think about coming out alive. In the blink of an eye, Su Zimo was devoured by Chaos Essence Grotto. The surrounding Mahayana patriarchs shook their heads gently. In their opinion, Desolate Marshal was already a dead man. Su Zimo felt an extremely terrifying power tear, squeeze and distort his green Lotus true body within Chaos Essence Grotto. He could not defend against that power at all. Poof! In the blink of an eye, the green Lotus true body was minced by Chaos Essence Grotto. The human emperor's Dharmic edict reappeared and protected Su Zimo's essence spirit and a portion of his bloodline hurriedly. If Su Zimo's essence spirit was the only thing that was protected and the bloodline of his green Lotus true body was minced by the Chaos Essence Grotto, he wouldn't be able to use blood rebirth. Condense. Su Zimo channeled blood rebirth. The green Lotus true body condensed once more. However, he could not break free from the shackles of Chaos Essence Grotto. The moment his green Lotus true body was formed, it was minced by Chaos Essence Grotto and turned into a blood mist. The green Lotus true body was destroyed once more. The human emperor's Dermic edict opened up to protect Su Zimo's essence, spirit, and bloodline. Fufu. When the Yu emperor saw that, he sneered, "I'll destroy you every time you're reborn. Let's see how many more times your Green Lotus true body can be reborn." No matter how strong the life force of the Green Lotus true body was, there was a limit. The Green Lotus true body was destroyed continuously and his blood chi was severely drained. Continuous blood rebirth took a huge toll on Su Zimo's essence spirit. Each time he reconstructed his body, Su Zimo's face would turn paler. However, there was still no hint of panic on his face. Instead, he was extremely calm. As the Green Lotus true body was destroyed and reborn, Su Zimo's eyes shone with a bright glint, as though he was comprehending something. Chapter 1671, Late Stage Mahayana. Chapter 1671, Late Stage Mahayana. The creation Green Lotus stole the creation of heaven and earth and had many mysterious aspects to begin with. When the creation Green Lotus was at grade 7, in its complete form, it was merely a lotus platform. Even then, it could nourish Su Zimo's essence spirit and allow him to release many dermic arts continuously. At its peak, divine powers similar to blood rebirth could even be derived. Now that the creation Green Lotus was at grade 8, Su Zimo could already sense the obscurities within. The creation Green Lotus contained many greater divine powers to begin with and even supreme divine powers. Of course, Su Zimo was only at the mid-stage Mahayana realm right now. Even if he was the Green Lotus true body, it was unrealistic for him to comprehend supreme divine powers. However, in Chaos Essence Grotto Heaven, the Green Lotus true body was destroyed and reborn continuously due to the supreme divine power of the Yu Emperor. During this process, Su Zimo's comprehension of his greater divine power deepened. To a certain extent, he was a humanoid creation Green Lotus. It was the easiest for him to comprehend the divine powers produced by the creation Green Lotus. Even after 10 breaths, Desolate Marshal isn't dead? That can't be right. Even the number 1 of the divine power ranking wouldn't be able to withstand that supreme divine power and would have died a long time ago. Many Mahayana patriarchs caught up and discussed softly. "I don't believe you're not dead." The Yu Emperor channeled his essence spirit continuously and the world within Chaos Essence Grotto Heaven spun. A terrifying power tore through the Green Lotus true body and ground away every inch of flesh and life. Great healing technique. Right then, Su Zimo's voice sounded from Chaos Essence Grotto Heaven. An extremely massive divine power spread from the spinning Grotto Heaven and endless life force surged out. The Green Lotus true body had already reached its limits after so many destruction. However, right then, Su Zimo comprehended a greater divine power of the creation Green Lotus and instantly, a tremendous life force burst forth. In the blink of an eye, the Green Lotus true body was formed once more. Su Zimo had experienced the baptism of a divine power storm in the Kunlun ruins. The divine power storm was a healing-type divine power storm. There were other greater divine powers within the creation Green Lotus. However, Su Zimo had the deepest comprehension towards healing divine powers and comprehended them first. The Yu Emperor frowned and his gaze froze. He could clearly sense that Desolate Marshal could not hold on for much longer in his Chaos Essence Grotto Heaven. However, he had not expected Desolate Marshal to survive in the blink of an eye and comprehend a greater divine power. Furthermore, it was the great healing technique. The Green Lotus true body was initially at the end of its road. However, after releasing the great healing technique, the Green Lotus true body was filled with vitality and all its injuries were healed. The power of the greater divine power baptized the Green Lotus true body and black-haired essence spirit continuously. The power of Su Zimo's body, bloodline, and essence spirit rose rapidly. Under the stimulation of that tremendous life force, the creation Green Lotus grew rapidly as well. Each time it underwent a divine power baptism, the creation Green Lotus would grow slightly. The strength of the green lotus true body was only revealed after the baptism of a greater divine power. Initially, the power of Chaos Essence Grotto Heaven could destroy the green lotus true body instantly. But now, the Grade 8 green lotus true body could defend against the power of Chaos Essence Grotto Heaven. The green lotus true body was covered in injuries and fresh blood flowed. Flesh was torn endlessly, revealing the jade green bones and organs within. However, the great healing technique also healed the injuries of the green lotus true body wildly. Chaos Essence Grotto Heaven could no longer destroy the green lotus true body completely. He had merely comprehended a single greater divine power right now. If he comprehended more greater divine powers and continued to cleanse his green lotus true body, Su Zimo could not imagine how his body would grow as the creation green lotus grew. Su Zimo gripped the human emperor's seal and smashed it towards the entrance of Chaos Essence Grotto Heaven. Boom! Boom! No matter how strong Chaos Essence Grotto Heaven was, it could not crush the human emperor's seal. The human emperor's seal created a passage within Chaos Essence Grotto Heaven. Su Zimo channeled his essence spirit and his figure flashed. He followed behind the human emperor's seal and escaped from Chaos Essence Grotto Heaven rapidly. Ha 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 ha. Although Su Zimo was covered in blood, he still reared his head in laughter. Du, it's all thanks to you that I'm able to comprehend a greater divine power in such a short period of time and advance to the late-stage Mahayana realm. This desolate marshal has just entered the mid-stage Mahayana, but he already managed to comprehend a greater divine power so quickly. After all, it's the creation green lotus that stole the creation of heaven and earth. Coupled with the fact that the human emperor passed down his title and gathered the fortune of the world, it's only logical for his cultivation to advance by leaps and bounds. He's actually making use of an emperor to break through. His boldness. Many Mahayana patriarchs had just arrived when they saw this. Su Zimo knew very well that even though he had comprehended the great healing technique, it was only a greater divine power. He was no match for an emperor who had comprehended supreme divine powers. He broke free from Chaos Essence Grotto Heaven and burst into laughter before turning to flee. The divine power of the great healing technique was still baptizing Su Zimo's body, bloodline, and essence spirit continuously. This time round, after he condensed ethereal wings, channeled Zephyr Thunder escape and burst forth with boundless golden light as well as heavenly feet, his speed was even faster than before. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared before everyone. Many perfected Mahayana patriarchs present could not catch up to Su Zimo even with their full strength. Desolate Marshal has too many escape techniques. One of them should be the heavenly feet of the Buddhist monasteries. If this divine power is cultivated to its limits, it will be a greater divine power. One can literally tunnel through every single spatial node and reach any single part of the world. Given Desolate Marshal's attainments in Buddhism, it won't be long before he cultivates heavenly feet to become a greater divine power. Even if you've comprehended a greater divine power, you won't be able to escape my grasp. The Yu Emperor's expression was terrible as he roared. With a single stride, he crossed thousands of feet in the blink of an eye and charged towards Su Zimo with a terrifying speed. Before long, Su Zimo and the Yu Emperor had already left the Mahayana patriarchs far behind. Desolate Marshal, you can't escape. The Yu Emperor had a mocking expression and seemed like he was strolling idly. However, every single step he took crossed the voids and closed in rapidly towards Su Zimo. This was a greater divine power that could shrink the ground into inches. Swoosh! The Yu Emperor attacked and his horsetail whip tore through the air, letting out a howl. 3,000 silver threads spread and whipped down, not giving the green lotus true body any space to dodge. Bang! The green lotus true body somersaulted, and more than half of his flesh was extracted, making him look extremely miserable. However, Su Zimo could still smile. Du, you're already afraid. You know very well that if you're already unable to kill me after I comprehended a single greater divine power, the day of my return will be your death anniversary. Green light spewed out from Su Zimo's body with immense vitality. The flesh that was whipped off by the horsetail whip regrew rapidly, and his injuries were healing. Su Zimo did not engage the Emperor and continued escaping. Now that the crux of the matter had been pointed out by Su Zimo, the Emperor was even more determined to kill him and chased relentlessly. Su Zimo lowered his head slightly with a cold glint in his eyes. He did possess methods that could kill emperors. However, that was his trump card, and he did not want to expose it right now. However, if the Emperor insisted on chasing, he would have to use his trump card to kill the Emperor here. Chapter 1672, Exit of the Prime Body. Chapter 1672, Exit of the Prime Body. Su Zimo sprinted ahead. The Emperor chased closely behind. The distance between the two of them was getting closer, and the killing intent in Su Zimo's eyes was intensifying. Suddenly, an extremely evil aura suddenly descended, and Su Zimo's bloodline could not help but stir, as though it was about to spill out of his body. Su Zimo's expression changed. That was the aura of the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra. Su Zimo widened his eyes and channeled his heavenly eye. Crossing the voids, he caught sight of a figure 5,000 kilometers away. Although the figure was a little blurry, he recognized it instantly. Monk Daming. Monk Daming was giving him a hand. Ugh. Behind Su Zimo, the Emperor suddenly grunted and paused. He staggered as though he was greatly affected. Without hesitation, Su Zimo released his heavenly feet and burrowed underground. His body was shrouded by a Buddhist light, and he seemed to have fused with the mud as he tunneled underground without any resistance. That was the power of heavenly feet. Once heavenly feet was cultivated to become a greater divine power, one could tunnel far away within the 5 elements. This time round, after Su Zimo escaped, he could sense that the Emperor did not catch up to him. Before long, he left the Emperor behind completely. Su Zimo was puzzled. However, the danger was not over yet, and Su Zimo did not think too much about it. He changed directions and sped towards Monk Daming. Given his speed, he arrived before long and leaped up from the ground, looking at Monk Daming, who was not far away. Just as Su Zimo was about to thank Monk Daming with cupped fists, he realized that the latter's figure was gradually dissipating and turning into nothingness. Su Zimo lowered his gaze and saw the words on the ground. See you on the Divine Power Ranking. Monk Daming had long left, and what remained was his phantom along with those words. Although it was a short statement, Su Zimo could sense Monk Daming's fighting spirit. It was only at this moment that Monk Daming truly viewed Su Zimo as his opponent. Those words were also a declaration of war. It had nothing to do with grudges. In this generation, anyone who could encounter an opponent close to their level would be delighted and want to compete. Prior to this, Monk Daming had always been ahead of Su Zimo. Towards Su Zimo, it was always similar to how a senior would look down upon a junior. But now that Su Zimo had comprehended a greater divine power and advanced to the late-stage Mahayana realm, Monk Daming knew that Su Zimo was qualified to be his opponent. Su Zimo looked at those words and suddenly smiled. Monk Daming would not have expected that the two of them had already fought when they were at the half-martial ancestor realm. Of course, that was the martial Dao prime body. This green Lotus true body had yet to engage Monk Daming in a hearty battle. Even Su Zimo was looking forward to it. Suddenly, Su Zimo frowned slightly and recalled the doubt he had earlier on. When he saw Monk Daming earlier on, his cultivation realm was only at the late-stage Mahayana realm. How could a late-stage Mahayana Monk Daming affect an emperor? Even the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra did not have such power. Furthermore, when Monk Daming released the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra earlier on, Su Zimo felt uncomfortable as well. His bloodline seemed to have broken free from his control and wanted to break out of his body. Su Zimo pondered for a moment, but came to no conclusion. He suppressed that doubt in his heart for the time being and sped forward after determining his direction. Now that Su Zimo had advanced to the late-stage Mahayana realm, He was prepared to look for a secluded and safe place to enter seclusion once more to comprehend the other greater divine powers of the creation Green Lotus. The Dharma characteristic ranking was held once every 1,000 years. The divine power ranking was held once every 10,000 years. It had been close to 10,000 years since the previous divine power ranking. The divine power ranking would open up again in around 300 years. In that 300 years, he had to comprehend as many greater divine powers as possible so that he could fight Monk Daming. Hundreds of thousands of kilometers away, the Yu Emperor stood in the air with a changed expression. His eyes flickered with shock and fear. Just who in the world was that? Impossible. The Yu Emperor narrowed his eyes with a strange blood glint. After pondering for a moment, he could not come up with an answer. Taking a deep breath of air, he sneered, "Desolate Marshal, you can escape for now, but not forever. The only way is if you do not appear to fight for a spot on the divine power ranking. Once you do, I'll make sure you die without a burial ground. There won't be any accidents next time." When Su Zimo came out of seclusion this time round, he fought against many Mahayana patriarchs and even attracted the attack of an emperor, causing quite a stir in the ancient battlefield. However, things calmed down gradually with Su Zimo's disappearance. The ancient battlefield returned to normal. However, all the patriarchs knew in their hearts that once Desolate Marshal reappeared, another bloodbath would definitely break out in the ancient battlefield. The Yu Emperor would definitely not let Desolate Marshal off. There was no room for negotiation between the two of them. If the Yu Emperor could not kill Desolate Marshal, his death would come the day the latter becomes an emperor. Tianhuang Mainland. When the Green Lotus true body entered seclusion once more, the Martial Dao prime body that was in Pingyang town exited his seclusion. Now that he was out of seclusion, the Martial Dao prime body had already entered the Mahayana realm. For the Martial Dao prime body, the most normal cultivation method was to enter the ancient battlefield and comprehend divine powers there. However, that way, the path of the Martial Dao prime body would be no different from the Green Lotus true body. Furthermore, there was another place that might be more suitable for the Martial Dao prime body than the ancient battlefield. Of course, this place was also extremely dangerous. The Martial Dao prime body looked to the west. "Young master, are you leaving?" Tao Yao arrived beside the Martial Dao prime body and asked softly. Over the years of cultivation, Tao Yao had already cultivated to the conjoint body realm and became a grand demon. Under normal circumstances, apart from seclusion cultivation, one had to head out to train and fight against many strong foes. One could only break through bottlenecks better through countless life and death battles. After all, there was only a single person in history that could make use of the Martial Dao furnace to smelt all dermic arts and nurture 100 sutras, a single variant like the Martial Dao prime body. However, Tao Yao was even stranger. He did not have to fight with others. However, his cultivation would increase bit by bit just by staying in this tiny courtyard in Pingyang town. It was neither fast nor slow, but there were no bottlenecks. The Martial Dao prime body could not understand it either. However, in the eyes of the Martial Dao prime body, this was not a bad thing. After all, Tao Yao had never liked to fight. Although Tao Yao had fought with others up till this point of his cultivation, his palm had not been tainted by a single drop of blood. "I'm leaving." The Martial Dao prime body nodded slightly. "There's no need for you to follow. Stay in Pingyang town and protect the citizens well." "I will. Don't worry, young master." Although Tao Yao's eyes were reluctant, he nodded obediently. Chapter 1673, Divine Powers Refinement. Chapter 1673, Divine Powers Refinement. Kunlun Ruins. This was a forbidden ground for all Mahayana patriarchs. This day, a purple-robed man arrived. His face was blurry as though he was shrouded by a fog. The Martial Dao prime body looked at the ruins not far away and walked forward with a deep gaze. He passed through the outer perimeter of the Kunlun ruins and arrived before the Kunlun barrier. Without hesitation, the martial Dao prime body broke through the Kunlun barrier and entered the Kunlun ruins. The moment the martial Dao prime body entered the Kunlun ruins, the entire Kunlun ruins trembled as though it was agitated. Divine powers began to gather around the martial Dao prime body and rapidly formed a divine power storm that engulfed the latter. The divine power storm contained an extremely terrifying power that destroyed the body of the martial Dao prime body. It destroyed all life, as though it wanted to destroy everything. Unlike a healing divine power storm, this divine power storm possessed a terrifying killing power. Although it was only a lesser divine power storm, blood scars appeared on the surface of the martial Dao prime body's skin the moment the storm descended. The body of the martial Dao prime body could take on dermic treasures head-on and was not weaker than any divine weapon. However, he was covered in injuries from the envelopment of the divine power storm. There was no fear in the eyes of the martial Dao prime body. Instead, they shone brighter. Refine. The martial Dao prime body hollered. Whoosh! His figure seemed to have vanished, and in its place was a gigantic furnace. The martial spirit fire burned furiously, wanting to refine the divine power storm. The two powers intertwined continuously. The divine power storm wanted to extinguish the martial spirit fire, while the martial spirit fire wanted to incinerate the divine power storm. This time round, the martial Dao prime body was not smelting dermic arts, but divine powers. Going to the ancient battlefield to observe, comprehend, and cultivate various divine powers was way too slow. Furthermore, if he headed to the ancient battlefield to comprehend divine powers, the martial Dao prime body would not be able to avoid fighting for the divine power ranking, and he would definitely be exposed. If he comprehended divine powers step by step, the martial Dao prime body might not even be comparable to the Green Lotus true body. That was because the creation Green Lotus was an utmost treasure of the universe and contained divine powers to begin with. It was closer to the universe, and coupled with the fact that the human emperor passed down his title and gathered the fortune of the world, its cultivation speed was naturally extremely shocking. If the martial Dao prime body wanted to raise his combat strength as soon as possible, he could only take an extreme path. Since the martial Dao furnace could smelt all dermic arts, why not divine powers? As long as a divine power was smelted completely, it would be equivalent to having that divine power fused into the martial Dao furnace, becoming one with the martial Dao prime body. The divine power storm and martial spirit fire were still fighting. Neither side was willing to back down. At the most dangerous moment, the body of the martial Dao prime body was already destroyed. The remaining martial spirit fire was almost dispersed by the divine power storm as well and turned into an extremely weak wisp of flame. If the martial spirit fire was extinguished, it would be equivalent to the death of the martial Dao prime body. Up till this point of his cultivation, the martial Dao prime body had never encountered such a dangerous situation. However, the martial Dao prime body did not show any fear. Instead, his gaze turned firmer. While smelting the divine power storm, he tempered his Dao heart and determination. After a long time, the power of the divine power storm gradually weakened. The light of the martial spirit fire intensified. The martial Dao furnace had finally gained the upper hand. After another long period of refinement, the divine power storm around the martial Dao prime body gradually disappeared. To be precise, it did not disappear. Instead, it was completely refined by the martial Dao furnace and became a part of it. The power of the martial Dao prime body had increased significantly as well. The figure of the martial Dao prime body appeared and channeled his blood chi. The wounds on his body healed in the blink of an eye. Right then, the martial Dao prime body felt something strange and looked over instinctively. Unknowingly, powerful living beings had gathered around him. The commotion attracted many Kunlun clansmen. Those Kunlun clansmen widened their eyes and looked at the martial Dao prime body, completely scared out of their wits. Apart from Desolate Martial in the past, this was the first time they saw someone walk out alive from a divine power storm. Even in the past, the reason why Desolate Martial was able to survive the divine power storm was because of immense luck. He only managed to survive by chance because it was a healing divine power storm that collided against the power of the Sword of Misfortune. But now, the purple-robed mysterious man fought against the divine power storm with his own strength and survived. In the end, even the divine power storm could not hold on and its power dissipated, vanishing. At that moment, the many Kunlun clansmen did not realize that the power of the divine power storm had not dissipated at all. Instead, it was smelted and fused into the body of the martial Dao prime body. Intruder, who are you? A Kunlun half-martial ancestor asked in a deep voice. The peak half-martial ancestor experts of the Kunlun race followed Night Spirit to Tianhuang mainland to break through, and were staying in Ethereal Peak for the time being. More than half of the remaining Kunlun clansmen stayed here to guard the Kunlun ruins. If anything happened in the Rainbow Cave above the God-slaying valley, they would inform the Kunlun Lord, Night Spirit, right away. The martial Dao prime body ignored the surrounding Kunlun clansmen and continued towards the Kunlun ruins. Let me remind you, the Kunlun half-martial ancestor said in a deep voice, there are many divine power storms here, and what you just experienced is only one of them. If you trigger a greater or supreme divine power storm, you'll definitely be shattered into pieces. Is that so? The martial Dao prime body murmured softly and suddenly released a divine power from his body. The power released caused another violent fluctuation in the Kunlun ruins as tremendous divine powers gathered around the martial Dao prime body once more. In the blink of an eye, 2 divine power storms were formed. Is he a lunatic? He even took the initiative to trigger a divine power storm. Everyone, keep your distance and don't get implicated. Many Kunlun clansmen shouted and retreated, afraid that they would be implicated by the divine power storms around the martial Dao prime body. They had lived in the ruins for countless years and had never seen anyone like this. Others would want nothing more than to avoid divine power storms. This person actually took the initiative to trigger them. 2 divine power storms were formed, and the martial spirit fire burned once more. The martial Dao furnace appeared and smelted the power of the divine power storms. Up till now, the martial Dao prime body was still extremely careful and did not dare to trigger a greater divine power storm. However, as time passed by, after the martial Dao furnace smelted enough lesser divine power storms, the power of his body and furnace would reach its limits. At that time, he could attempt to smelt greater divine power storms. Eventually, he would smelt the supreme divine powers here. There was no place more suitable for the martial Dao prime body than the Kunlun ruins. The divine powers contained in this battlefield were much richer than in the ancient battlefield. More importantly, the martial Dao prime body did not have to worry about being exposed here. The Kunlun clansmen within could not get out because of the Kunlun barrier, while intruders wouldn't be able to enter or even use their spirit consciousnesses to detect what was happening within the Kunlun ruins. Not only did the martial Dao prime body want to hide from the primordial races, he wanted to hide from the even more terrifying and mysterious existences of Tianhuang mainland. Chapter 1674, Hunting Patriarchs. Chapter 1674, Hunting Patriarchs. Time passed by quickly. It had been 300 years since desolate Marshall appeared in the ancient battlefield. In the past 300 years, although there were occasional fights and killings in the ancient battlefield, they did not cause much of a stir. Nobody discovered any traces of desolate Marshall for 300 years. It was as though desolate Marshall had vanished completely after he appeared. As the fight for the divine power ranking approached, the ancient battlefield turned chaotic once more. More and more Mahayana patriarchs gathered towards the region of the divine power ranking. Even some Mahayana patriarchs who were in seclusion cultivation came out of seclusion, one after another, and rushed over. The divine power ranking was only held once every 10,000 years, and it was a rare opportunity. If one could obtain a spot on the divine power ranking and obtain the inheritance of a greater divine power, it might be even greater than the increase in strength after countless years of seclusion. Furthermore, there were some empty spots on the divine power ranking this time round. For example, Matriarch Yuluo of Heavenly Dipper Sect and Patriarch Fei Duan of Malevolent Earth Sect died at the 10,000 race meet. 300 years ago, Di Yun, who was ranked 33 on the divine power ranking, died at the hands of Desolate Marshal. In the past 10,000 years, even more spots opened up. Some of them died in battles in the ancient battlefield, while some of them comprehended supreme divine powers and became emperors, relinquishing their positions on the divine power ranking. Of the 36 spots on the divine power ranking, 11 were now empty. The fight for those empty spots would definitely be intense. As for some Mahayana patriarchs, they wanted to make use of the divine power ranking this time round to raise their spots so that they could inherit even more greater divine powers. Even some early, mid, and late-stage Mahayana patriarchs who did not have the strength to fight for a spot on the divine power ranking would choose to spectate. For many patriarchs, this was a rare event. At that time, many patriarchs and experts would enter the fray. If they could comprehend a little knowledge because of that, their trip would not be wasted. I heard that the rank 1 of the divine power ranking 10,000 years ago, Jian Chunzi, comprehended a supreme divine power and is now an emperor. Now that he's off the divine power ranking, I wonder who will take his spot. It's definitely Patriarch Qi Huang of Malevolent Earth Sect. He's already ranked 2 on the divine power ranking for 30,000 years. If he hadn't lost to Jian Chunzi by a single move 10,000 years ago, he would have been rank 1 of the divine power ranking. Before the divine power ranking began, countless patriarchs had already begun discussing and analyzing the situation of the divine power ranking. Not necessarily. Another patriarch shook his head gently. Rank 3 on the divine power ranking, Patriarch Ji Lei of Zephyr Thunder Palace, has also occupied the 3rd spot for 20,000 years. I think Patriarch Ji Lei has a high chance of winning this time round. Let's put it this way. Now that the top spot is emptied out, the other 5 of the top 6 all have a chance of fighting for that spot on the divine power ranking. Right then, a patriarch suddenly said, I reckon that Desolate Marshal will definitely appear for the divine power ranking this time round as well. Perhaps he might even get to fight for the top few spots of the divine power ranking. Him? Another patriarch pouted his lips in disapproval. He only comprehended a single greater divine power 300 years ago. After that, he'll only be able to comprehend 1 or 2 more at most. Even with the Green Lotus True Body, it's already not bad if he can get into the top 20 of the divine power ranking. How can he have the strength to fight for the top few spots? A patriarch at the side agreed. That's right. Notwithstanding the top 6 of the divine power ranking, even the patriarchs in the top 10 have been famous in the ancient battlefield for a long time and have comprehended more than 15 greater divine powers. The difference between them is too great. That's not all. Another person said, don't forget, an emperor of the D clan tried to kill Desolate Marshal 300 years ago, but failed. I reckon that Desolate Marshal might not even dare to appear this time round. As the fight for the divine power ranking approached, the changes on the divine power ranking became more obvious. The divine power ranking hovered in the firmaments and scrolls spread out with names written on them, emitting golden lights. Some of the spots were blank, indicating that they were empty. If one were to approach, they would discover that every single spot on the divine power ranking would reflect a gigantic region on the ground that was shrouded by golden light. There were a total of 36 such golden regions beneath the divine power ranking. This was the battlefield of the divine power ranking. Some of the golden regions had Mahayana patriarchs guarding them. If anyone wanted to fight for the spot, they would have to go to that particular golden region and challenge the Mahayana patriarch in its place. Nobody was allowed to interrupt the fight. Every single golden region could only accommodate 2 people. At that moment, there were hundreds of Mahayana patriarchs gathered beneath the divine power ranking. Mahayana patriarchs had a lifespan of 100,000 years. These patriarchs were equivalent to 100,000 years of foundation of the human race. Look, rank 28 on the divine power ranking has disappeared. Right then, A cry sounded from the crowd, and many patriarchs pointed at the divine power ranking in the firmaments with shocked expressions. What's going on? Some of the Mahayana patriarchs who arrived later on approached and asked curiously. I heard that recently, patriarchs of the divine power ranking have been removed one after another, resulting in empty spots. A Mahayana patriarch explained, that's already 5 in 5 days. The Mahayana patriarchs were shocked when they heard that. There were only 2 possibilities if a patriarch's divine power ranking was removed before the battle of the divine power ranking even began. First, if this Mahayana patriarch comprehended a supreme divine power and became an emperor, he would naturally disappear from the divine power ranking. However, the probability of that was extremely low. Furthermore, there wouldn't be so many emperors ascending in succession. That was 5 patriarchs in 5 days. The second scenario was for a Mahayana patriarch on the divine power ranking to be killed. If they died, they would naturally be removed from the divine power ranking. Someone's hunting patriarchs on the divine power ranking. Right then, someone said something that exploded in the crowd. Hunting patriarchs on the divine power ranking. Who was it? Who would have such methods? Desolate Marshal? A Mahayana patriarch grit his teeth. Desolate Marshal must have done it. Desolate Marshal has reappeared. It's not Desolate Marshal. Right then, another Mahayana patriarch seemed to have thought of something and revealed a reminiscent expression. A few days ago, I encountered a black-robed man in the ancient battlefield. His long hair covered most of his face, and his appearance could not be seen clearly. This black-robed man once asked me about the location of some Mahayana patriarchs on the divine power ranking. I wasn't bothered at that time. Now that I think about it, there's a high chance that this person was going to hunt down those Mahayana patriarchs. Who is that? The many patriarchs were puzzled. Could there be another monster incarnate in the ancient battlefield apart from Desolate Marshal? Right then, another commotion broke out in the crowd. Look! Someone pointed at the divine power ranking with a pale expression and said with a trembling voice, Rank 6 on the divine power ranking, Patriarch Scatter-Knight, has vanished. Chapter 1675, Gathering of Experts. Chapter 1675, Gathering of Experts. The top 6 of the divine power ranking were the strongest Mahayana patriarchs in the ancient battlefield. Without extraordinary means, the top 6 wouldn't have been able to kill their way to the top to inherit the supreme divine powers of the eternal human emperor. Nobody expected that one of the top 6 of the divine power ranking would be gone before the actual battle even began. Strange? A Mahayana patriarch frowned slightly and pondered. There's no pattern to the patriarchs on the divine power ranking hunted by this mysterious person. Some of them are from Snowdrift Valley, some of them are from Asura sect, while some of them are from Formless Monastery. There are individuals from the Immortal, Buddhist, and Fiend sections. What's the background of this person? Why is he hunting patriarchs on the divine power ranking? Another person said, Isn't this person afraid that the emperors of the super sects will attack him in the ancient battlefield? Stop guessing. Once the divine power ranking begins, this person will definitely appear. The fight for the divine power ranking was getting closer and closer. The number of Mahayana patriarchs around the divine power ranking was still increasing and had already broken through 1,000. A few hundred years ago, when Su Zimo spread the malevolent spirit fruits in Enigma Palace, many half-martial ancestor experts broke through and entered the Mahayana realm, entering the ancient battlefield. Right then, a boom sounded not far away and the ground trembled, as though a supreme expert had broken out of seclusion. Many patriarchs turned to look. On the horizon, a blazing thunderbolt sped over and arrived above the heads of many patriarchs instantly, revealing a figure. Rank 3 on the divine power ranking, Patriarch Ji Lei. Many cultivators looked at Patriarch Ji Lei with reverence. He was rank 3 on the divine power ranking for 20,000 years and had defeated several strong foes in 2 divine power ranking battles. Foo-foo. Suddenly, a chuckle came not far away. A figure walked over slowly from midair with a smile and cupped his fists. Brother Ji Lei, How have you been? The crowd stirred. That figure was none other than Patriarch Pi Xian, who was rank 5 on the Divine Power ranking. Why? Are you still going to challenge me this time round? Patriarch Ji Lei glanced sideways at Patriarch Pi Xian and smirked with a mocking expression. Patriarch Pi Xian was not enraged at all. It's fine, even if I can't do it this time round. I can try again in another 10,000 years. I'm still young, but you're already declining from your peak. You'll definitely lose if this continues. In the Divine Power ranking 20,000 years ago, Patriarch Pi Xian was defeated by Patriarch Ji Lei. Over the years, the two of them had fought countless times, and Patriarch Pi Xian was always the one defeated. The two of them could be considered as old enemies. Right now, they were at odds the moment they met, and it was extremely tense. I heard that Patriarch Ji Lei isn't young anymore. He seems to be around 80,000 years old. That's old. Under normal circumstances, he should be in his twilight years at 70,000 to 80,000 years old. However, there's no sign of aging on Patriarch Ji Lei's body, and his blood chi is still so strong. Impressive. Some patriarchs discussed softly. The two of you had better save your energy. Another figure appeared slowly in midair. It was a woman with shoulder-length purple hair. She had a long sword on her back and a grim expression. Rank 4 on the Divine Power ranking, Matriarch Zishuang of Purple Firmament Sect. Matriarch Zishuang said, "The two of you have been in seclusion for many years. I'm afraid you haven't heard of a monster incarnate in the ancient battlefield who specializes in hunting patriarchs on the Divine Power ranking. Up till now, at least 6 patriarchs have died in his hands. Furthermore, no one knows his background, and he's extremely mysterious." Oh. Patriarch Ji Lei thought nothing of it and said indifferently, "He's just a coward who's hiding. There's nothing to worry about." Suddenly, the world seemed to have darkened as an extremely repressed aura descended, giving everyone a sense of danger. All the patriarchs present felt suffocated. The patriarchs were all way too familiar with that aura. Rank 2 on the Divine Power ranking, Patriarch Qi Huang of Malevolent Earth Sect. Patriarch Qi Huang walked towards the Divine Power ranking expressionlessly with a powerful might. The discussions in the crowd gradually disappeared, and everyone went silent instinctively. At that moment, apart from those who died, all the patriarchs on the Divine Power ranking were present. Look, it's that person. Who? The mysterious person hunting the patriarchs on the Divine Power ranking. The crowd had just quietened down with the appearance of Patriarch Qi Huang when another huge commotion broke out. Even Patriarch Qi Huang could not suppress such a scene. Many patriarchs turned towards the north. A white-robed man strode over. His long hair was scattered casually and covered most of his face. The man only revealed one eye. However, it was deep and bright, as though it was filled with endless wisdom. Anyone who met with that eye would be lost within instinctively. A faint blood scar could be seen on the man's glabella. However, no one connected the scar to the Heavenly Eye race's Heavenly Eye. That was because the ancient battlefield was sealed by a barrier, and no one from the primordial races could enter. When they saw the blood scar, many patriarchs merely thought that it was a scar on the person's glabella. "That's him," Matriarch Zishuang said sternly. "I've once seen this person from afar. He's extremely strong and unfathomable. I don't have any confidence against him either. Where did this guy come from? Why haven't I heard of him before?" Patriarch Pi Xian frowned slightly. Even he felt uneasy when he exchanged glances with the white-robed man. Patriarch Ji Lei narrowed his eyes, and his gaze flickered in deep thought. Patriarch Qi Huang turned around as well and glared at the intruder fixedly, emitting an extremely dangerous aura. Against the gazes of so many experts, the white-robed man walked over casually in a composed manner without any bit of uneasiness. Suddenly, as though he sensed something, the white-robed man suddenly turned and looked towards the east. At that moment, even Patriarch Qi Huang and the others did not notice anything. However, not long after, a figure appeared in the eastern horizon. His green robes fluttered, and his black hair fell like a waterfall. His eyes were clear as he rode on the wind. "Desolate Marshal? Desolate Marshal is here too. Desolate Marshal is truly not afraid of death. Even those who had not seen Su Zimo personally before could guess the identity of the green-robed cultivator judging from his attire and the powerful life force he exuded. "You're here." Su Zimo approached and shifted his gaze, greeting the white-robed man. Everyone was shocked. From his tone, Desolate Marshal seemed to know this mysterious person. Others might not know the white-robed man, but Su Zimo naturally knew in his heart that the mysterious person who hunted the patriarchs of the divine power ranking was Monk Daming. "Why did you kill them?" Su Zimo frowned slightly and went straight to the point. He could understand if Monk Daming killed patriarchs of Heavenly Dipper Sect, Malevolent Earth Sect, and Penglai Island. However, he did not understand why Monk Daming would deal with patriarchs of Snowdrift Valley and some other supersections. There shouldn't be any grudges between them. Monk Daming went silent for a moment. "The same reason why I wanted to kill you? You mean to say?" Su Zimo was shocked. Chapter 1676, Asura Dao. Chapter 1676, Asura Dao. Monk Daming once said that he harbored killing intents towards Su Zimo because the latter cultivated the blood refinement Fiend Sutra. The reason why Monk Daming did not appear on Six Stars Mountain the entire time was to test Su Zimo. The reason why Monk Daming did not attack Su Zimo was because even when his life was hanging by a thread, the latter did not use the blood refinement Fiend Sutra. Right now, Monk Daming was implying that those people he killed had all cultivated the blood refinement Fiend Sutra. What happened? Su Zimo frowned and asked. Monk Daming shook his head gently. The actual situation might be even more terrifying than you can imagine. The conversation between the two of them did not reveal any information and was understood only by both of them. The surrounding Mahayana patriarchs were confused. Are there still people like them on the divine power ranking? Su Zimo asked again. Yes, Monk Daming replied. Su Zimo exchanged glances with Monk Daming and suddenly smiled. The two of them understood what the other party wanted to do without the need to continue speaking. It was a tacit understanding. Although the two of them did not interact much, they seemed like bosom buddies. Right then, a powerful aura descended. A scholar-like cultivator appeared in midair with a square-shaped stone slab on his back. It was unknown what dermic treasure that was. He wore white robes and waved his sleeves. Although he had a sage-like demeanor, he exuded the might of the Emperor Dao. An emperor had descended. Senior Chess Emperor, to think that you'll be the one hosting this divine power ranking battle. In the crowd, Lin Xuanji stood out and bowed to the white-robed scholar. Within the crowd, some of Su Zimo's acquaintances had already arrived. Lin Xuanji, Mingzhan, and Demonishji had already entered the Mahayana realm and arrived in the ancient battlefield. However, their cultivation realms were only at the early stage Mahayana realm, and they could not take part in the fight for the divine power ranking. Su Zimo looked around but did not see the Asura, Yin Beichen. Humph. The chess emperor blew his beard. There's still no news of your master after he ran into the human emperor's palace. As such, I have no other choice but to host it. The chess emperor was another emperor of Enigma Palace. Legend has it that the chess emperor loved chess more than anything else. His favorite thing in life was to specialize in chess and fight with others on the chessboard. In the end, he actually managed to create a Dao that belonged to him. He reached the peak of his chess Dao and fused the legacy secret skills of Enigma Palace with his chess Dao, comprehending a supreme divine power that allowed him to become an emperor. The chess emperor could be considered an anomaly in the cultivation world. That's enough. The chess emperor waved it off. There's no need for unnecessary formalities. Those who want to fight for a spot on the divine power ranking, hurry and fight. Hurry and end it. I still have a deadlock on a chessboard waiting for me to resolve. With a look of impatience, the chess emperor urged the Mahayana patriarchs below. Patriarch Qi Huang, Patriarch Ji Lei, and the others moved one after another and led the way into the golden regions enveloped by the divine power ranking. They were ranked on the divine power ranking. If anyone wanted their spots on the divine power ranking, they would have to challenge them. As for the emptied spots, they were free for all the other patriarchs to fight for. Monk Daming's gaze swept past the patriarchs on the divine power ranking and finally landed on a person as he walked slowly towards the ladder. Rank 3 on the divine power ranking, Patriarch Ji Lei. Just who is that person? He's actually challenging Patriarch Ji Lei right away. Judging from his cultivation realm, he's only at the late-stage Mahayana realm and has yet to cultivate to the perfected Mahayana realm. How strong can he be? I don't know how strong he is. At the very least, he killed rank 6 on the divine power ranking. The surrounding Mahayana patriarchs were merely watching the show. However, Su Zimo was the only one who knew why Monk Daming targeted Patriarch Ji Lei. No wonder Patriarch Ji Lei could possess such strong blood chi despite his almost 80,000 years old lifespan. It's because he cultivated the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra. Su Zimo glanced at Patriarch Ji Lei and turned towards another golden region. Desolate Marshal is prepared to make a move as well. By the looks of it, he seems to be headed for Patriarch Su Jing. Patriarch Su Jing, rank 21 on the divine power ranking. Between him, Fei Duan, and Yu Luo, he was the only one who survived the 10,000 race meet. Patriarch Su Jing looked at the approaching Su Zimo with a grim expression and said slowly, "Why? Fellow Taoist Desolate Marshal, are you looking to settle old scores with me?" "Sort of." Su Zimo replied indifferently. The divine power ranking is a treasure passed down by the human emperor and protects the human race. You're not worthy of being on it. That was his and Monk Daming's choice. Monk Daming chose to remove the patriarchs on the divine power ranking who cultivated the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra. As for him, he chose to remove the patriarchs of Heavenly Dipper Sect, Malevolent Earth Sect, and Penglai Island. The both of them were joining forces to remove the impurities of the divine power ranking. Whether I'm worthy or not is not determined by you. Patriarch Su Jing's expression darkened. Desolate Marshal, I might be afraid if it's your Dragon Phoenix true body. Your Green Lotus true body is only at the late-stage Mahayana realm. Humph, if we fight with our full strength, nobody knows who the victor will be. Is that so? Su Zimo did not stop and entered the Golden Light region. With a huge stride, he arrived before Patriarch Su Jing in the blink of an eye and shouted, "Let me see what you have." Boom, boom. He flipped his palm and his blood chi burst forth with the sound of tsunami, releasing a torrential might that suppressed Patriarch Su Jing. Asura Dao. Patriarch Su Jing suddenly shouted. A mighty figure appeared behind him like a fiend celestial. It was indomitable with 9 heads, 8 legs, and 1,000 hands with a terrifying aura. The Asura Dao was a greater divine power and one of the 6 Daos of the Buddhist monasteries. Legend has it that Asuras were half-human half-gods who were brave and loved to fight. They were extremely strong. If one could cultivate the Asura Dao, the phantom of an Asura would descend and help cultivators fight against strong foes, causing their combat strength to increase exponentially. Extinguish. Su Zimo's gaze intensified and green glows burst forth from his body, surging into the skies like a sharp sword chi. Before the Asura could materialize, it was pierced by the green glows and dissipated after a momentary stalemate. Patriarch Su Jing's expression changed. The moment his greater divine power was released, it was destroyed by Su Zimo. However, Su Zimo's attack did not stop at all, and his gigantic palm descended. Patriarch Su Jing did not have the time to release a second divine power. He swiped his storage bag and withdrew a cold saber, slashing it towards Su Zimo's wrist. Humph! Su Zimo did not dodge or avoid and bent his fingers slightly. With a clang, a few fingernails that were sharp as daggers protruded and dug into Patriarch Su Jing's saber instantly. Clang! There was a crisp sound. Patriarch Su Jing's saber could not advance and was locked by Su Zimo's fingers without budging at all. Shatter! Su Zimo hollered and exerted strength with his fingertips. Crack! 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 Creaks sounded and cracks appeared on the saber one after another. Pissed! Many Mahayana patriarchs gasped in shock. Chapter 1677, Book Return. Chapter 1677, Book Return. With just a single palm, Desolate Marshal destroyed Patriarch Su Jing's dermic treasure barehanded. Nobody expected Desolate Marshal, a late-stage Mahayana, to be this strong. This was the potential of the creation Green Lotus. Over the years, after the baptism and refinement of many greater divine powers, the Green Lotus true body grew rapidly and became stronger. However, this was not the limit and peak of the creation Green Lotus. On the battlefield, the saber shattered and Su Zimo slapped his palm. Many saber shards turned into dozens of cold lights that entered Patriarch Su Jing's body instantly. The two of them were way too close, and Patriarch Su Jing had not expected Su Zimo to be able to shatter his saber. He could not react in time. Poof, poof, poof. Blood mists burst forth from Patriarch Su Jing. After a brief pause, his body could not withstand the power contained in the shards and exploded. Patriarch Su Jing's essence spirit escaped and fled into the distance. Humph! Su Zimo sneered. Do you think you can escape? Chi! In a flash, a blazing sword beam descended, slicing Patriarch Su Jing's essence spirit into two instantly. Rank 21 on the Divine Power ranking, Patriarch Su Jing was dead. The crowd fell into a momentary silence before a commotion broke out. The battle had ended too quickly. It had been less than 10 breaths since Su Zimo attacked and Patriarch Su Jing died. Right from the beginning, Patriarch Su Jing merely released a single greater divine power and died without the chance to release a second divine power. Is this Desolate Marshal who established the Tao for all living beings? When he saw that, the Chess Emperor in midair nodded and praised. To think that even at the Mahayana realm, you're able to kill experts on the divine power ranking who are above your cultivation realm. You truly live up to your reputation. Su Zimo did not linger in that golden region. Instead, he turned to leave and looked at the Patriarchs on the divine power ranking. Patriarchs of Heavenly Dipper Sect, Malevolent Earth Sect, and Penglai Island. You can withdraw from the divine power ranking. On what grounds? Patriarch Xing Tian, who was rank 17 on the divine power ranking, frowned. On the grounds that I was the one who said it. Su Zimo said coldly, if you don't withdraw from the ranking on your own accord, you will end up in the same state as Su Jing. Desolate Marshal, it's understandable that you want to fight for the divine power ranking. However, isn't that way too domineering? That's right. Immediately, a Patriarch of Malevolent Earth Sect agreed and turned to the Chess Emperor with cupped fists, shouting, Enigma Palace has always been fair and impartial in managing the 3 ranking lists. Senior Chess Emperor, please suppress Desolate Marshal. The Chess Emperor smiled faintly. You're right. Enigma Palace has always been fair and impartial. There's no way we would interfere in something like this. Desolate Marshal is only fighting for a spot on the divine power ranking. He didn't bully the weak, nor did he bully with numbers. Why should I suppress him? But Patriarch Xing Tian wanted to argue. The Chess Emperor flicked his sleeves gently. There's no need to speak further. Even if Desolate Marshal wants to remove your names, it's only right. Anyone can leave their names on the divine power ranking. However, Patriarchs of your 3 sects are not qualified. When the human race was in trouble, you guys abandoned our race and submitted to the primordial 6 races in order to survive. How can you still have the cheek to occupy any spot on the divine power ranking? Patriarch Xing Tian and the others blushed in shame after being reprimanded by the Chess Emperor. However, all of them were still hesitant to withdraw from the divine power ranking just like that in front of everyone. Right then, Su Zimo moved and walked towards them. The expressions of Patriarch Xing Tian and the others changed as they grit their teeth and turned to flee from the divine power ranking like stray dogs. However, another Patriarch from Malevolent Earth Sect did not move from the divine power ranking. Rank 2 on the divine power ranking, Patriarch Qi Huang. Boom! Right then, a loud bang sounded from another part of the battlefield, attracting the attention of many cultivators. Monk Daming and Patriarch Ji Lei had already begun fighting. Although there were also Patriarchs fighting in the other golden regions, everyone's gazes were still drawn by monk Daming. Everyone was curious about monk Daming's background and methods. To the many patriarchs, as long as monk Daming attacked, they would definitely be able to determine his lineage and deduce based on his methods. However, many patriarchs were disappointed. Up till this point of the fight, monk Daming had never released any secret skills or divine powers. He suppressed Patriarch Ji Lei completely with his physical body and blood chi. The latter retreated continuously and was completely disadvantaged. The loud bang earlier on was also because Patriarch Ji Lei released a greater divine power that was shattered by monk Daming's palm. What's the background of that person? He's so strong. He must be from a body-tempering super sect. Could it be Glass Palace, Overlord Palace, or Diamond Monastery? Impossible. Even the body-tempering dermic formulations of super sects are not at such a terrifying level to be able to take on divine powers head-on. Many patriarchs discussed for a long time, but to no avail. In midair, the chess emperor frowned slightly and murmured, "Who is that? Even I can't tell his background." Interesting. Lin Xuanji's eyes flickered. There's a high chance that this is the person who infiltrated Enigma Palace and stole the Mystic Firmament record. Oh. The chess emperor glanced sideways and said in surprise, "The matter of the Mystic Firmament record being stolen was true. When I heard the news, I thought that someone was spouting nonsense. Not only that, I suspect that there's a high chance he's behind everything in Tianhuang mainland in recent years." Lin Xuanji said, "Although senior brother Heavenly Secrets deserved to die, there's a high chance he was plotted against by this person." So amazing. The chess emperor was even more surprised. After pondering for a moment, he said, "How about we wait a while and I'll find an opportunity to suppress that person and force him to hand over the Mystic Firmament record." "There's no need for that." Lin Xuanji shook his head. The Mystic Firmament record was returned around 300 years ago. Because of the loss of the Mystic Firmament record, the sect's library was protected even more. Apart from the guards on the surface, there are even 2 Mahayana patriarchs guarding the library. "And then?" the chess emperor asked. Lin Xuanji smiled bitterly. Even with those 2 Mahayana patriarchs, nobody knew when exactly the Mystic Firmament record was returned. "What did you say?" The chess emperor's heart skipped a beat. It was no wonder why he was so shocked. Lin Xuanji's words meant that this person infiltrated Enigma Palace once more and returned the Mystic Firmament record under the watch of 2 Mahayana patriarchs. However, he did not attract any attention and left silently. "I can understand why this person could steal the Mystic Firmament record back then," Lin Xuanji said. "After all, there were no patriarchs guarding the library at that time. Furthermore, the attention of the entire Enigma Palace was drawn over by Desolate Marshal and the others. This person seized the opportunity and took advantage of the situation. At the very least, there were traces left behind when this person stole the book. However, the process of him returning the book was way too terrifying. He was completely unfathomable and left no traces. If not for the routine checks of the disciples of the library that unintentionally discovered the return of the Mystic Firmament record, nobody in the entire sect, not even the 2 Mahayana patriarchs, noticed that someone had been to the library. Chapter 1678, Killing Ji Lei. Chapter 1678, Killing Ji Lei. Lin Xuanji was only half right. Monk Daming was indeed the one who stole the book. However, neither he or the chess emperor would have ever guessed that it was someone else who returned the book. The gaze of the chess emperor landed on Monk Daming once more as he said in a deep voice, "Actually, it's not as though this person did not release any divine powers. At the very least, he has been channeling one of the 6 divine powers of the Buddhist monasteries, heart-peering. Although heart-peering is only a greater divine power, if he manages to cultivate it successfully, he will be able to read the other party's mind and predict the enemy's movements. It's extremely mysterious. Legend has it that the difficulty of cultivating the 2 greater divine powers, heart-peering and destiny, is comparable to supreme divine powers. To think that this person would be able to cultivate heart-peering successfully. Lin Xuanji let out a look of realization. No wonder he could gain the upper hand against Patriarch Ji Lei completely. He could read every single thought of Patriarch Ji Lei and react first. In that case, isn't victory certain for him? This person's attainments in Buddhism must be extremely high. Could he be a monster incarnate of the Buddhist monasteries? I'm not sure. The chess emperor shook his head gently. We can't determine the background of this person just because he cultivated heart-peering. Although he hid it well, I could still sense an extremely evil aura emanating from him. If he hadn't cultivated some powerful fiend technique, there's no way he would reveal such an aura. That's strange. Lin Xuanji seemed to be in deep thought. On the battlefield, Monk Daming had already gained the upper hand and suppressed Patriarch Ji Lei tightly. The latter was almost helpless. No matter what trump cards or divine powers Patriarch Ji Lei released, Monk Daming would be the first to know and prepare. Every single move of Patriarch Ji Lei was sensed by Monk Daming. Patriarch Ji Lei's expression was already a little pale, and he was drenched in sweat. Although he was not injured, he endured immense mental pressure. Up till this point of his cultivation, he had fought countless battles in his life, but he had never felt such pressure against someone of the same cultivation realm. Right from the beginning, Monk Daming was calm. Even he could sense that Monk Daming did not use his full strength, let alone the bystanders. It was as though the other party was playing with a child. No matter how he struggled, he was always beaten back to square one by the other party. It was a complete humiliation. Patriarch Ji Lei bore immense resentment in his heart. Just who are you? Patriarch Lightning's expression was terrible. As he defended, he grit his teeth and asked, I don't know you at all. Why are you hunting me? Monk Daming did not reply and continued suppressing Patriarch Ji Lei expressionlessly. His long hair swayed and revealed his wise eyes from time to time. His gaze was calm and emotionless. Since you refuse to tell me, don't blame me. Patriarch Ji Lei's eyes shone with a scarlet glint. Suddenly, Monk Daming strode forward and cut in front of Patriarch Ji Lei, slapping his palm on the latter's chest. Crack! Although the palm strike seemed light and weak, it caused Patriarch Ji Lei's chest to cave in deeply. Poof! An arrow of blood burst forth from Patriarch Ji Lei's back. His heart was ruptured by Monk Daming's palm. You talk too much. Monk Daming shook his head gently. Those who talk more often die faster. Even if one focused their attention in a fight against Monk Daming, they might not even stand a chance of winning, let alone behave the way Patriarch Ji Lei did and attempt to speak. Unless one cultivated a divine power that could multitask, they would definitely be distracted when they spoke. It was inevitable for openings to be revealed once one was distracted. While the openings might be imperceptible, they were magnified infinitely in the eyes of Monk Daming. Strange? Lin Xuanji frowned. Patriarch Ji Lei's heart was shattered. Why isn't his blood chi failing at all? Instead, it's getting stronger? The chess emperor frowned and glared at Patriarch Ji Lei, murmuring, This aura seems familiar. You are courting death. Patriarch Ji Lei's eyes were bloodshot as he let out a deep growl, emitting a torrential blood chi that resembled a bloodthirsty, ferocious beast. Blood chi surged into the skies, and instantly, the world went dark and was incomparably evil. Even the golden light of the divine power ranking was suppressed. Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra. The chess emperor and Lin Xuanji exclaimed at the same time when they saw that. Many patriarchs in the crowd recognized the origin of that evil aura and could not help but shudder with wary expressions. Lin Xuanji had a conflicted expression. If not for the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra, Senior Brother Heavenly Secrets would not have fallen into the endless abyss and died. Patriarch Ji Lei glared at Monk Daming not far away with a menacing expression and said coldly, You forced me. Even if I can't survive, I'll kill you first. Patriarch Ji Lei knew that he would be targeted by the other Mahayana patriarchs the moment this matter was exposed. Although he could kill Monk Daming by releasing that fiend technique, he was most likely doomed as well. Monk Daming did not reply and merely smiled. Suddenly, Patriarch Ji Lei froze. He caught sight of a hint of mockery in Monk Daming's deep eyes. It was as though his every move had been predicted by the other party. Could it be? Suddenly, Patriarch Ji Lei's eyes widened as he thought of a possibility. The reason why this person hunted him was because he cultivated the blood refinement Fiend Sutra. But how did this person know? Right then, Monk Daming extended his palm and gripped Patriarch Ji Lei gently through the void. MMM? When Patriarch Ji Lei released the blood refinement Fiend Sutra, his blood chi was torrential and he was surrounded by fiend chi. However, as Monk Daming retracted his palm, all the blood chi seemed to have been grabbed by Monk Daming's palm and returned to Patriarch Ji Lei's body. Patriarch Ji Lei could not control the entire process at all. Although he was clearly the one who cultivated the bloodline, he could not control it at all. I got it. A thought flashed through Patriarch Ji Lei's mind. He had guessed the truth, but he no longer had the chance to say it. All his bloodline was under Monk Daming's control, and even his essence spirit could not release any spirit consciousness fluctuation. Monk Daming closed his palms slowly with a cold expression. All the bloodline in Patriarch Ji Lei's body gathered continuously and eventually compressed into a blood ball with an extremely terrifying power. Monk Daming released his grip. Bang! The blood ball exploded and released a tremendous power, destroying Patriarch Ji Lei's body instantly. Against the burst of the bloodline, his essence spirit could not even escape. It was drowned and destroyed on the spot. Patriarch Ji Lei was dead. The entire world went silent. Many patriarchs looked at everything in disbelief. Patriarch Ji Lei, who had dominated the third spot of the divine power ranking for 20,000 years and even used a trump card like the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra, was killed by this white-robed man. Just what was that method released by the white-robed man in the end? Chapter 1679, Suppressing Everything. Chapter 1679, Suppressing Everything. Initially, Su Zimo wanted to look for Patriarch Qi Huang, but he stopped in his tracks to watch the battle of Monk Daming. Monk Daming turned around and looked at Su Zimo, who was not far away. I'll wait for you at the top of the ranking. With that said, Monk Daming left the Golden Light region of the rank 3 of the Divine Power ranking and headed for the region of the rank 1 of the Divine Power ranking. There were many patriarchs who hoped to fight for the Divine Power ranking, but none of them dared to challenge the rank 1 of the Divine Power ranking. If they wanted to fight for the rank 1 of the Divine Power ranking, they would have to consider how they compared against Patriarch Ji Lei. At that moment, Patriarch Qi Huang, who was qualified to fight for the rank 1 of the Divine Power ranking, was already targeted by Su Zimo. Rank 4 of the Divine Power ranking, Matriarch Zishuang, and rank 5 of the Divine Power ranking, Patriarch Pai Xin, exchanged glances. Tactfully, none of them challenged Monk Daming. After Monk Daming and Patriarch Ji Lei's fight ended, many patriarchs looked back at Su Zimo. Another massive battle could break out at any moment. In the Golden Light region of the rank 2 of the Divine Power ranking, Su Zimo was in a standoff with Patriarch Qi Huang. Desolate Marshal. Patriarch Qi Huang's expression was cold as he said slowly, "You still have to fight against that person later on. It's best if you don't provoke me. If I truly give it my all, you might not stand to gain. By the time you fight that person, you'll definitely lose." "You're mistaken," Su Zimo replied indifferently. "It's useless even if you give it your all." Before his sentence was finished, Su Zimo slapped his storage bag and a gigantic pitch-black seal appeared in his palm. It emitted an ancient and powerful aura that caused the void to tremble. The Human Emperor's Seal. If Su Zimo wanted to fight Monk Daming, he would definitely not waste too much stamina and methods on Patriarch Qi Huang. Therefore, he intended to use the simplest and most direct method to suppress Patriarch Qi Huang. Patriarch Qi Huang's pupils constricted. What Su Zimo was wielding was no ordinary dermic treasure, but a massive weapon of Tianhuang mainland. The weapon of the eternal human emperor possessed terrifying strength and could suppress mountains and rivers. 5 Ghost Spirit Rip. Patriarch Qi Huang hollered and channeled his essence spirit, releasing a greater divine power without testing the waters. 5 ghostly figures suddenly flew out from his palms and lunged towards Su Zimo with extremely cold auras. The 5 ghosts were incorporeal and did not fear dermic treasures. Once attached to a cultivator, they would devour the cultivator's essence spirit until the cultivator was dead. Humph! Su Zimo sneered and raised the human emperor's seal in his hands before him, shouting softly, "Demons and monsters, disperse." Boom! The human emperor's seal shuddered gently and released an extremely domineering aura that swept through the heavens. Although the 5 ghosts did not fear dermic treasures, the power of the human emperor's seal had already surpassed the scope of ordinary dermic treasures. Evil divine powers could not deal with the human emperor's seal at all. Green light emanated from Su Zimo's body and dispersed the 5 ghosts that were charging over. 7 Luminaries' Finger. Patriarch Qi Huang channeled his essence spirit once more and released a second divine power. He extended his finger and instantly, 7 ancient stars appeared in the skies, descending with endless starlight that gathered on his finger. The 7 stars formed a single thread, causing the power of Patriarch Qi Huang's finger to reach its limits. Su Zimo smiled faintly and tossed the human emperor's seal in his hands into the air, smashing it towards the incoming 7 Luminaries' Finger. Boom! The human emperor's seal collided with the 7 Luminaries' Finger with a loud bang. Immediately after, the 7 stars shattered. Poof! A blood mist spewed and Patriarch Qi Huang's finger was crushed by the human emperor's seal. Even greater divine powers could not defend against the power of the human emperor's seal. Patriarch Qi Huang grunted dully, and a cold glint flashed through his eyes. For Mahayana patriarchs, crushed fingers were merely superficial wounds. In the blink of an eye, Patriarch Qi Huang's finger regrew and recovered. However, right then, a huge shadow loomed over. The human emperor's seal carried a shocking aura and suppressed Patriarch Qi Huang. The wind howled and the world trembled. He did not have time to release the second greater divine power and could only slash in reverse towards the human emperor's seal. Clang! The saber shattered. No dermic treasure could go against the human emperor's seal. Patriarch Qi Huang's expression was terrible as he hurriedly took out a second dermic treasure. It was an ancient mirror that was extremely similar to the human emperor's mirror. This was a dermic treasure created to be a replica of the human emperor's mirror and possessed extremely strong defensive capabilities. Crack! The moment the ancient mirror was summoned, it was shattered by the human emperor's seal once more. A replica dermic treasure could not fight against the human emperor's seal. At that moment, divine powers and dermic treasures were useless in the face of brute force. Su Zimo summoned the human emperor's seal because he wanted to suppress everything. Swoosh! When Patriarch Qi Huang saw that he could not defend against it, he finally could not hold on any longer. Turning into a streak of light, he released his escaped divine power and fled into the distance. Trap? Su Zimo bit his fingertip and drew a blood-colored circle in the void. The blood-colored circle descended beneath Patriarch Qi Huang's feet out of thin air, forming an invisible barrier that restricted him to the spot. Trap word art, a greater divine power. The chess emperor nodded to himself. Indeed, Desolate Marshal obtained Senior Human Emperor's legacy. After Senior Human Emperor left, that greater divine power was lost as well. Desolate Marshal is the second person ever to cultivate it. After a brief pause, he continued, however, "It's strange. There shouldn't be any dermic formulation for the trap word art in the ancient battlefield. How did Desolate Marshal manage to cultivate it?" Break. Patriarch Qi Huang released his divine power once more and a malevolent spirit descended. His aura surged and his strength rose as he broke free of the shackles of the trap word art. However, the human emperor's seal had already descended after that single delay. Boom! Boom! There was a loud bang and the ground shook. Patriarch Qi Huang's figure had already vanished and was suppressed beneath the human emperor's seal. A stream of scarlet blood seeped out from beneath the human emperor's seal. Patriarch Qi Huang was dead. This battle ended even faster. Su Zimo did not require much strength and merely controlled the human Emperor's seal to kill Patriarch Qi Huang completely. Su Zimo put away Patriarch Qi Huang's storage bag and turned to walk towards the golden light region of the rank 1 of the divine power ranking. Here it comes. The many patriarchs lamented internally and were invigorated. The white-robed man's background was mysterious and unfathomable. His battle against Desolate Marshal would definitely be a fierce one. Most patriarchs thought that it would be best if the two of them fought to the death with an internecine outcome. I'll bet on this white-robed man winning. A patriarch analyzed. This person is way too mysterious. Furthermore, he has yet to reveal his true capabilities up till now. Desolate Marshal will definitely win this battle. Another patriarch shook his head. The human Emperor's seal can suppress and sweep through everything. Who can stop it? In midair, Lin Xuanji said, given Brother Su's capabilities, he will definitely be able to force out the full strength of that mysterious person. At that time, we'll know just who in the world he is. The fact that such a monster incarnate could appear in Tianhuang mainland and even escape the notice of Enigma Palace brought about immense displeasure to Lin Xuanji. Chapter 1680, Immovable Mingwang Seal. Chapter 1680, Immovable Mingwang Seal. Hundreds of thousands of kilometers away from the divine power ranking, 7 figures stood in the air and looked in the direction of the divine power ranking. Their gazes seemed to be able to cross the voids and see everything hundreds of thousands of kilometers away. The 7 figures emitted an extremely terrifying aura. Just by standing casually, they exuded the might of the Emperor Dao as though they were looking down on the world. 7 emperors. One of them was the Emperor of Chaos Essence Sect and the D clan. Du. I'll leave Desolate Marshal to you guys. I'll deal with that white-robed cultivator with frost metal and 7 kills. An emperor whose body shone with purple lightning said slowly. The emperor was from Zephyr Thunder Palace and his Dao title was Purple Thunder. The frost metal and 7 kills that he was referring to were on his left. They were from Glass Palace and Sword Sect. The reason why the Purple Thunder Emperor wanted to kill Monk Daming was because Monk Daming hunted down Patriarch Ji Lei and the others on the Divine Power ranking. The Patriarchs of Glass Palace and Sword Sect on the Divine Power ranking were not spared either. There shouldn't be any problems if the 4 of you join forces to deal with Desolate Marshal, right? The 7 kills Emperor looked at Du and turned to ask. Du smiled gently. Don't worry. When Desolate Marshal escaped the previous time, it was because of an accident. This time round, with 4 emperors surrounding him, Desolate Marshal won't be able to escape even if he has wings. Leave the Chess Emperor to me. The person who spoke was the malevolent Earth Sect's malevolent emperor. All right, once the golden light of the divine power ranking dissipates, we'll attack. The Purple Thunder Emperor said coldly. At that moment, Su Zimo and Monk Daming were both in the golden light regions. Even emperors would have to spend some effort to break through the golden light of the divine power ranking. Du said, once the 2 of them are severely injured and exhausted, they will be birds in our cages. Beneath the divine power ranking, many Mahayana patriarchs were gathered, watching the rank 1 golden light region of the divine power ranking. Even some patriarchs who wanted to fight for a spot on the divine power ranking stopped temporarily and watched by the side, waiting for the rare battle to end before making further plans. Unexpectedly, Su Zimo put away the human emperor's seal in his hands after entering the golden light region. Monk Daming nodded at Su Zimo and smiled. Although Su Zimo had the human emperor's seal, Monk Daming had the human emperor's mirror as well. Su Zimo would not gain any advantage with that weapon. However, Monk Daming's identity might be exposed. By doing that, Su Zimo was doing Monk Daming a favor. Needless to say, Monk Daming understood everything. He suddenly sent a voice transmission with a fake smile. Since you did me a favor, I'll tell you one thing as well. The oriole stalks the mantis as it stalks the grasshopper. You mean the 7 people hundreds of thousands of kilometers away? Su Zimo's expression was calm. We don't know who the mantis and oriole are yet. Monk Daming's eyes lit up as he nodded. Indeed, this was hidden from you? If you can sense it, so can I. Su Zimo smiled faintly. Monk Daming smiled as well. All right, let me see what methods and divine powers you've cultivated all these years. Great sealing technique. The moment he said that, Monk Daming had already attacked. An extremely strange power burst forth from his hands and enveloped Su Zimo instantly. Su Zimo's bloodline churned slower and slower, as though it was about to solidify. The strange power even entered his consciousness and attempted to seal his essence spirit. Thankfully, the black-haired essence spirit was not sealed right away with the protection of the creation Lotus platform. Great sealing technique. To think that this white-robed man managed to cultivate that divine power. Isn't that the greater divine power of the god race? How does he know the cultivation method of the great sealing technique? The crowd exclaimed, and many patriarchs were shocked. Some patriarchs who had been to the 10,000 race meet were even more shocked. Back at the 10,000 race meet, even the bloodline of the taboo dragon phoenix was sealed when a patriarch of the god race released that greater divine power. The taboo dragon phoenix was unable to take on his true form or release his peak combat strength. It was clear how strong that greater divine power was. If the dragon phoenix true body had not comprehended the greater divine power, time is like a saber, and allowed the power of divine powers to surge into his body to wash away the power of the great sealing technique, he would have been doomed in that battle. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. If the divine power of the great sealing technique was completely formed, he would not be able to break free no matter how torrential his methods were. Om, Ma, and I, Pa, Me, Hom. Suddenly, Su Zimo opened his mouth and chanted Sanskrit. At the same time, he conjured hand seals repeatedly and released 6 damning dermic seals. The Fiend Suppression Seal, Demon Subduing Seal, Immortal Trap Seal, Immovable Foundation Seal, Great Vajra Wheel Seal, and Great Mount Meru Seal. All 6 damning dermic seals condensed in front of Su Zimo. Condense. Suddenly, Su Zimo hollered and channeled his essence spirit. Under his control, the 6 damning dermic seals changed and released an extremely terrifying power. The power of divine powers descended. The formation of the 6 damning dermic seals was a greater divine power. Suddenly, another gigantic phantom appeared on Su Zimo's figure. It was green and black with a slanted top and skirt. Holding a sword in its right hand and a rope in its left, it stood amidst the raging flames like an immovable mountain. The greater divine power, Immovable Mingwang One Seal. The immovable Ming King had descended. Boom! A tremendous divine power burst forth from Su Zimo's body, purging away the power of the great sealing technique and restoring his blood chi to normal. Su Zimo released the immovable Mingwang seal and dispelled the great sealing technique almost perfectly. A look of admiration flashed through Monk Daming's eyes when he saw that. The fact that Su Zimo was able to cultivate the Daming True Sutra to this realm meant that Daming Monastery had a successor. That fact that its legacy was not lost brought him nothing but happiness and relief. Take a greater divine power for me as well. Su Zimo conjured lotus flowers with both hands and pointed forward. Suddenly, heaven and earth rumbled. A bedazzling light descended from the firmaments. Many patriarchs looked up instinctively and saw an extremely shocking scene. In the skies, jade-green lotus flowers descended one after another before swiveling slowly. Multicolored light filled the skies and everything floated gently. At the same time, Sanskrit sounded from the skies in a shuddering manner. Under such a phenomenon, many patriarchs had dazed expressions and lost their Tao hearts. They nearly knelt on the ground and prostrated to convert to Buddhism. The chess emperor let out a shocked expression as well and murmured, "Legend has it that when accomplished monks of the Buddhist monasteries preach, they can touch the heavens. Even the lotus flowers in the skies will descend one after another. It's only now that I know that they're not lying." This was a greater divine power nurtured by the creation green lotus, heavenly flowerfall. Back when Su Zimo entered the Mahayana realm, he attracted this auspicious phenomenon. For him, comprehending that greater divine power was something that happened naturally. Monk Daming raised his head slightly and looked at the lotus flowers falling from the skies. His eyes were still clear, as though they contained endless wisdom. His Buddhism was profound and was not weaker than the green lotus true body. Sanskrit or a phenomenon as such could not affect his Tao heart. Chapter 1681, Earth Gushing Golden Lotus. Chapter 1681, Earth Gushing Golden Lotus. Suddenly, an extremely cold aura emanated from Monk Daming, and he emitted a billowing fog as the temperature of the world plummeted. A layer of frost covered the golden light region of the divine power ranking. Boundless frost seal. Monk Daming propped up both hands, and a chilling intent burst forth from his palms. Accompanied with a series of crackling sounds, the void froze. The falling lotus flowers became crystalline, as though they were in a frozen lake. With the restriction of the divine power ranking, the range of effect of the divine power naturally did not extend to 5,000 kilometers. However, the entire golden light region was enveloped by ice. Notwithstanding the lotus flowers that fell from the skies, even Su Zimo, who was opposite them, was swiftly covered by a layer of ice. The phantom of the immovable Ming King behind him was also gradually collapsing. The golden light region was now an extreme frost region. Any dermic arts, divine powers, secret skills, or dermic treasures would be frozen. Boundless frost seal? The chess emperor frowned slightly. Usually, only patriarchs of Snowdrift Valley are able to cultivate that greater divine power. Could he be a successor of Snowdrift Valley? That's not for sure. At the side, Lin Xuanji shook his head. We've got to take a closer look. The cultivation techniques and legacies in this person's body are way too mixed, and it's probably difficult to deduce. This greater divine power is extremely strong, and Desolate Marshal won't have an easy time dealing with it. The chess emperor murmured softly. On the battlefield, when Boundless Frost Seal descended, a layer of chilling ice crystals appeared in Su Zimo's bloodline, and his consciousness was filled with coldness. The bloodline of the Green Lotus True Body was about to freeze. In his consciousness, the creation Lotus platform spun slowly, and the black-haired Essence Spirit released another burst from his powerful spirit consciousness, forming a second greater divine power. Bang! Suddenly, the ice on the ground cracked and a blinding golden light shone through the crack, radiating brightly. The next moment, a golden lotus flower broke through the ice layer and surged out from the ground. Bang! 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 Immediately after, the sound of ice cracking could be heard from the battlefield. Golden lotus flowers tore through the ground and appeared with a blinding golden light. The frost on the battlefield seemed to have met with a blazing sun and melted one after another. It was another greater divine power nurtured by the creation Green Lotus, the earth-gushing Golden Lotus. Back when Su Zimo was at Golden Core Realm, he fused 3 phenomenons and created a golden lotus flower above the turtle and snake. He had long come into contact and comprehended the Tao techniques within the golden lotus flower. Furthermore, he was the creation Green Lotus to begin with, and there were almost no obstacles in comprehending that greater divine power. At the Golden Core Realm, that golden lotus flower was only condensed from spirit energy, and there was only one. But now, millions of golden lotus flowers were surging out from beneath Su Zimo's feet through the ice. Boom! Su Zimo's blood chi surged, and he broke free of the frost on his body instantly. Breaking out of the ice, his gaze burned and his aura rose continuously. Monk Daming's expression changed slightly as he conjured hand seals with both hands and hurriedly channeled another greater divine power. Sunset Flare. With a soft shout, a blazing sun appeared in the firmaments and descended like a gigantic fireball. The gigantic fireball fell to the ground, and the entire golden light region fell into a sea of flames, enveloping many golden lotuses as well. You've miscalculated. When Su Zimo saw that, he shook his head gently and smiled. Monk Daming's expression changed as well. His greater divine power could not refine the golden lotus flowers on the ground. Instead, It intensified the aura of the golden lotus flowers, and their growth increased exponentially. The reason why he released that fire divine power was because he wanted to make use of the nature of the 5 elements to refine Su Zimo's divine power golden lotus flowers. Among the 5 elements, fire countered metal. Furthermore, the lotus flowers belonged to the wood element and feared fire as well. Under normal circumstances, the sunset flare should be a perfect counter to the earth gushing golden lotus. However, the birth of the golden lotus had already surpassed the 5 elements and was beyond common sense. It was formed by the intertwining of turtle and snake, the sun and moon, light and darkness, yin and yang. Before the golden lotus was born, it was originally a green lotus. Its shade of green was burned away by the scorching flames of the turtle snake, allowing it to release blinding golden lights. The golden lotus was born from the flames to begin with. Not only did Monk Daming's sunset flare fail to refine the golden lotus flowers that surged out from the ground, it even made the auras of the golden lotus flowers even stronger. Metal was indestructible and eternal. It shared the longevity of heaven and earth and illuminated alongside the sun and moon. The flames burned furiously, and the golden lotus flowers that surged out from the ground grew stronger, charging towards Monk Daming. Bang! There were too many golden lotus flowers, and Monk Daming could not dodge in time. He was struck by a golden lotus flower, and his body shuddered as blood scars appeared on his face. Amazing! Monk Daming spat out a mouthful of blood and praised. His body was strong and condensed, and could even take on Dermic Treasure's head-on. However, it was nearly shattered by the golden lotus flower. It was clear how terrifying that greater divine power was. Of course, given Monk Daming's blood chi, even if he was smashed into pieces by the golden lotus flower, he was not severely injured and could recover in the blink of an eye. However, this exchange caused the situation of the battle to change gradually. The golden lotus flowers were endless and dense. Although the golden light region was vast, there was not much space for Monk Daming to dodge. He had just released a greater divine power, and his essence spirit had to ease slightly before he could release a second. However, the golden lotus flowers beneath showed no signs of stopping and surged continuously. Swoosh! Monk Daming suddenly took a step behind. Although that step seemed ordinary, it was mysterious and graceful. That single step landed right in a gap between the golden lotus flowers. Exquisite steps. In midair, the chess emperor and Lin Xuanji exclaimed at the same time. Just who is that person? Lin Xuanji frowned. It was no secret that the mystic firmament record was stolen by this person. However, the fact that this person could comprehend Ancestor Ling Long's secret skill in such a short period of time was way too terrifying. The mystic firmament record had a long history. Although there had been many paragons in Enigma Palace over the years, only a few of them could comprehend the exquisite steps. Most of them merely comprehended the mystic firmament steps. In fact, cultivators of Enigma Palace even felt that Ancestor Ling Long had not left behind the complete legacy of the exquisite steps in Enigma Palace. In this generation, only Demoness Ji, who entered the human emperor's palace, obtained the true legacy of Ancestor Ling Long and comprehended the exquisite steps. However, the scene before them shocked the two of them. This meant that there was indeed a cultivation technique for the exquisite steps in the mystic firmament record. However, they had not been able to crack the secret within. But now, the exquisite steps was cultivated by an outsider with a mysterious background. When Demoness Ji released her exquisite steps, her figure was graceful like a dragon. As for Monk Daming, he released the exquisite steps with an indescribable grace and ease, as though he was an immortal that was floating among the clouds, strolling leisurely among the golden lotus flowers. Chapter 1682, Arrival of the Emperors. Chapter 1682, Arrival of the Emperors. Swoosh! Su Zimo's figure flashed, and he arrived before Monk Daming in the blink of an eye. He flipped his palm to suppress the latter. Even if Monk Daming released the exquisite steps, he had already lost the initiative. For experts like Su Zimo and Monk Daming, any single mistake made by anyone would be captured and taken advantage of by the other party. Bang! Monk Daming punched in reverse and collided with Su Zimo's palm with a dull thud. Their blood chi intertwined and devoured one another without relenting. Su Zimo did not gain any advantage in that head-on clash. However, Monk Daming had no choice but to retreat and dodge. That was because golden lotus flowers were still surging underground continuously. He had to deal with Su Zimo while dodging the golden lotus flowers beneath his feet. However, Su Zimo would not be disturbed as such. He rode on the golden lotus flowers while they would not affect or harm him. Bang! 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 Both parties fought with speed. Su Zimo attacked consecutively and released a flurry of attacks without giving Monk Daming any chance to catch his breath. Their blood chi rose continuously, and they reached the tsunami blood realm before long. However, both of them had a tacit understanding and did not choose to release their bloodline phenomenons. This was not a life-and-death battle. That white-robed man is way too strong, Lin Xuanji said sternly. Brother Su's green lotus true body has grown to grade 8 and can even crush dermic treasures. To think that this person could fight against him for so long. The chess emperor nodded as well. That's right. Although that person is restricted by the earth gushing golden lotus and is disadvantaged, seemingly suppressed by desolate martial, there's no way to determine the victor. Once the divine power of the earth gushing golden lotus dissipates, that person will regain his freedom and won't be threatened by the golden lotus flowers. The outcome will be even more unpredictable. Lin Xuanji shook his head. No, Brother Su still has some trump cards that he has yet to reveal. If he does, that person will definitely lose. Fu, the chess emperor smiled gently and asked, how do you know that this person doesn't have similar trump cards to deal with them? Lin Xuanji's heart skipped a beat. The chess emperor was right. He knew nothing about this person. All he knew was that this person had shocking talent and was extremely audacious. He could even infiltrate Enigma Palace to steal the books and even set Su Zimo up. It was not surprising if such a monster incarnate had extraordinary methods, or rather, this person definitely had other trump cards. Lin Xuanji murmured softly, to think that in this generation, there could be someone who could match Brother Su. How scary. On the battlefield. Although Su Zimo had the upper hand, Monk Daming dealt with it calmly. Su Zimo did not use trump cards such as the Heaven-Slaying Sword Chi. That was because he knew that Monk Daming had some powerful trump cards as well. Even if they were released, it would not affect the outcome of this battle. That's incredible. Su Zimo could not help but praise internally. Monk Daming made an error in judgment and released a greater divine power that boosted his earth-gushing golden lotus, allowing him to gain the upper hand. Despite that, Monk Daming was still able to fight him head-on, relying on his powerful combat strength to weave through the gaps of the golden lotus flowers. Monk Daming was indeed the strongest opponent he had encountered. If the two of them were to fight to the death and use all their trump cards, no one would know which of them would survive. Right then, the divine power ranking trembled and released another blinding golden light, forming two golden beams that shone on Su Zimo and Monk Daming. The two beams of light isolated the two of them as well. That is, the divine power ranking is passing down its inheritance. How could that be? The outcome between the two of them has yet to be decided. This scene caused a commotion. Look! Someone pointed to the top of the divine power ranking and a Dao title slowly appeared, Desolate Martial. Immediately after, still at the top of the divine power ranking and ranked beside Desolate Martial, there were faint words. Another Dao title was about to appear. When Monk Daming saw that, he suddenly said, my Dao title is Solar Luna. The words that were about to appear on the divine power ranking suddenly turned blurry. Finally, the words Solar Luna appeared beside Desolate Martial. Desolate Martial, Solar Luna. Two Dao titles were ranked at the top of the divine power ranking. It's unprecedented to have equivalent ranks in the divine power ranking. What a rare sight. Even in the ancient era, there was no such situation. Could even the divine power ranking not bear to see the two of them continue fighting? That's indeed a possibility. The establishment of the divine power ranking is to make the human race stronger, not to kill one another. No matter which of those two monster incarnates dies, it's a huge loss for the human race. Many patriarchs exclaimed. Solar Luna? Lin Xuanji frowned and pondered for a long time before shaking his head. I've never heard of that name. Even in the ancient books of Enigma Palace, there's no such person. I've never heard of it either. The chess emperor shook his head. After a brief pause, he continued, however, that Dao title might not be real. Initially, the divine power ranking was almost about to reveal this person's true Dao title. However, the divine power ranking changed at the last minute when this person suddenly mentioned the Dao title Solar Luna. Just who is that person? Why is he hiding his identity? Lin Xuanji frowned and murmured, Solar Luna, Solar Luna. Among everyone present, Su Zimo was probably the only one who knew that the characters for Solar Luna formed the character for Ming when joined together. However, at that moment, neither Su Zimo nor Monk Daming were in the mood to think too much. The inheritance of the divine power ranking was akin to enlightenment. Every single breath was extremely precious. The two of them held their breaths and closed their eyes, comprehending the inheritance that descended from the divine power ranking carefully. Everyone knew that the top 6 of the divine power ranking would all inherit a supreme divine power from the human emperor. As for the rank 1, the supreme divine power inherited was the strongest. I reckon that it might be the human emperor's killing word art. It might also be the Premitha Bridge. When the Premitha Bridge was released at the 10,000 race meet, even the supreme divine powers of the primordial races could not defend against it and collapsed instantly. Many patriarchs discussed excitedly. Look, a patriarch pointed at Monk Daming and suddenly said, the word kill appeared above that person's head. Seems like the killing word art has been imparted to that person. A golden bridge formed from countless runes has appeared above Desolate Marshal's head. Desolate Marshal obtained the inheritance of the Premitha Bridge. Many patriarchs revealed envious expressions. Right then, an extremely terrifying might descended and the entire world seemed to darken. Black clouds surged over and the air was heavy. Many patriarchs looked up instinctively. 7 terrifying figures stood in the firmaments, emitting Emperor Dao auras and looking down at the world with cold expressions. 7 emperors. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.